Chapter 728. Stop. I can't stop at all. However, Wang Feng had tried his best to help them keep up with him. Wang Feng was currently asking the seahorse Dalu about the situation on Sea God's Island. Sea God's Island has a total of 7 cities. Each city isn't big, but there are more than 1,000 people living there. They are managed by the 7 holy pillar Dalu. Each city has about 500 sea soul masters guarding it. Most of them are old people and children. The seahorse Dalu told everyone about Sea God's Island. Wang Feng was stunned. Sea God's Island is powerful enough? There are at least 3,500 sea soul masters here. There are close to 4,000 sea soul masters here. This is even more powerful than the 7 treasure glazed tile sect. On Sea God's Island, they wouldn't be afraid even if they faced 10,000 soul masters. Don can't do much even if he comes knocking on our door, right? Wang Feng heaved a sigh of relief. Sea God's Island is so powerful. Don can't come from so far away. Even if he came, he can't do anything to Sea God's Island. Unless he becomes a god. However, it's impossible for Don to become a god in 3 years. Wang Feng was quite happy after learning about Sea God's Island's strength. Sea God's Island is very powerful. Even the strongest sects on the continent outside don't have so many soul masters. Hulaina spoke the truth. However, the soul masters on Sea God's Island usually don't leave, right? However, when we came here, we saw a building that looked like a port in another direction. The seahorse Dalu smiled and said, "Of course the soul masters on Sea God's Island won't leave. However, the soul masters from the outside will come in and form a hub with us. For example, the soul masters who brought you to Sea God's Island were soul masters who didn't pass the Holy Pillars test. Although they were once residents of Sea God's Island, they were expelled because they didn't pass the test. This group of soul masters is the foundation of our connection to the outside world. You saw just now? There are many different tests on Sea God's Island. It also represents the strength of our soul masters. They're divided into blue, white, yellow, purple, and black." They nodded. The test difficulty was directly related to one's aptitude. Seahorse City is just up ahead. It's not that big. I have already arranged rooms for you in advance. When the time comes, I will send someone to bring you to rest. In 2 days, I will send someone to look for you to talk about the examination. It'll also allow you to familiarize yourselves with the Sea God's Island. The content of the test is in that mark. Use your spiritual power to sense it, and you'll be able to see the content clearly. After you complete it, the content of the next test will be displayed. The seahorse pointed at the city in front of him. Although it was called a city, in Wang Feng's eyes, it was no different from small town. According to the seahorse Dalu, Seahorse City was the smallest of the 7 cities. However, the largest city, Sea Dragon City, only had about 2,000 people living there. It was just a slightly bigger town. However, the houses in the city were rather fantastical. They were of different shapes and sizes, as if they were built according to the forms of various sea spirit beasts. After the seahorse Dalu left, the yellow-robed soul master who had discovered Wang Feng and the others brought them to a house that was shaped like a large seahorse. They walked into the house through the seahorse's mouth. There were all kinds of daily necessities inside, and there were even several rooms. If you want food, we can provide it for free. Sea God's Island doesn't lack food. However, if you want other things from the Sea God's Island, you will have to exchange for them yourself. We don't use the currency of the outside world here. You can also take a look around. The yellow-robed soul master said a few more basic things before he left. The 9 tests of the sea god. After the yellow-clothed soul master left, Evil Moon and the other 2 raised a faint soul power light shield, enveloping Wang Fengyi and the other 2. Sea god. Listening to the meaning of this name, it should mean the god's inheritance that His Majesty the Pope mentioned, right? Will we become the true sea god if we pass the 9 tests of a sea god? It wasn't hard to guess. It was easy to guess from the name. If that's the case, then we can stop Tang San from taking the test. However, I'm afraid that's not very realistic. After all, The great consecrator of the sea god's island is so close to Tang San. He even gave the order personally. You can imagine how difficult it will be to stop him. Evil Moon shook his head. Fortunately, their mission was only to pass the test of the sea god's island and improve their strength. They already understood the situation on the sea god's island. Stopping Tang San and the others from taking the test was Lord Popetiff's mission. Luckily, from today's situation, the head consecrator was evidently quite close to the Pope. After all, it was still the sea god's test. Think about the content of the test for the next 2 days. Then take a look at the city and the sea god's island. Wang Feng looked at the three of them and said, I will temporarily stop your training. The content of the test is what you will face now. You don't have to think about anything else. The three of them nodded. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Wang Feng had also adapted to life on the sea god's island. He had to admit that the energy here was abundant and very suitable for cultivation. The energy below the holy pillar was even denser. It was no wonder that the seahorse Douluo had been cultivating under the holy pillar. Other than that, the people on the sea god's island were more friendly and friendly. It could be considered a paradise. However, the sea god's island was indeed powerful. As far as Wang Feng knew, the Moro tribe only had slightly more than 1,000 soul masters who could fight. The sea god's island was 3 times the size of the Moro tribe. On the 3rd day, the seahorse Douluo sent 2 purple-robed soul masters to answer the questions of the 2 groups of people. These 2 purple-robed soul masters had a type of martial soul called swordfish. Their attacks were very strong. At the same time, there were also soul sages. Purple-robed soul masters were second only to black-robed soul masters. In the central plaza of the Seahorse City, a purple-robed soul master asked Wang Feng and the others, Everyone, the Seahorse Douluo has asked me to explain the content of the test to you. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me first. Now, tell me the content of the first test. On the other side, Tang San and the others were also in the plaza, passing through the light of the sea god and reaching the 140th step. The person who spoke was Daimu Bai. When the 2 purple-robed soul masters heard this, they were stunned. They broke out in cold sweat. The first test is to pass through the light of the sea god. And it's so high. No wonder it's a black test. Don't tell me the rest of you did the same. Tang San and the others nodded their heads. Their first test was to pass through the light of the sea god. They all used the light of the sea god and reached the 140th step. Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing's tests were higher. They had an extra 20 steps. Bai Qinxiang's test was halved, but there was an additional condition. Shen Lingqi's test was around the 100th step. Tang San's test was twice as high, but he had to reach the 350th step. After hearing these numbers, the 2 purple-robed soul masters were stunned. They were very shocked. Then they looked at Wang Feng and the others. In comparison, Yin, Xiaoyu, and Hulaina's first test was not to pass through the light of the sea god. Instead, they had to bear the sea god's lock and sink 700 meters to 1,000 meters. When they heard the content of the test, the 2 purple-robed soul masters' mouths twitched. The 2 purple-robed soul masters looked at Wang Feng, who had a trident between his eyebrows, and asked, What's the content of your test? Wang Feng fell silent. P.S. I wrote 3 chapters. Vote for me. Chapter 729. The sea god's lock was made up of dozens of chains in the center of the sea god's island. Each of them weighed at least a few thousand kilograms, and they were extremely tough. In the past, they were used to trap some of the violent sea spirit beasts that attacked the sea god's island. After trapping them in the sea, they would be educated and turned into gentle sea spirit beasts. Most of the sea god's locks were idle now. Only a few of them were still used to trap some stubborn sea spirit beasts. Some of them could not be tamed and could only be left to become the soul rings of the sea spirit masters. Therefore, it was extremely difficult to bear the sea god's lock and sink hundreds of thousands of meters into the center of the sea. It was not inferior to crossing the sea god's light and ascending the steps. The 2 purple-robed soul masters looked at Wang Feng, who had a faint trident mark between his eyebrows, and thought, Is he going to take the same test? Hulaina and the other two also looked at Wang Feng. They had heard about the sea god's lock in the past few days. However, they did not find it difficult. They were curious about what Master Popetive's test would be like. The sea god's test. Wang Feng was silent for a moment and answered, crossing the sea god's light and entering the sea god's temple. The two purple-robed soul masters were stunned. Not the sea god's lock. However, they were dumbfounded when they heard that they had to ascend the sea god's temple. Crossing the sea god's light and entering the sea god's temple, the two purple-robed soul masters could not help but take a deep breath. Is this just the first test? Is this test very difficult? Hulaina could not help but ask. At this time, Tang San and the others had heard the news as well. The two groups were not far from each other. Sea God's Temple? Ma Hongjun muttered, "What is that place?" He looked at Tang San. The group had rested for the past 2 days because the journey was too difficult. They were tense all the time. However, they were also listening to the situation of the Sea God's Island and their first test. Sea God's Temple, Tang San said solemnly. It means that we have to cross the Sea God's light and ascend to the top of the steps. I'm not sure how many steps there are. However, I'm sure it's a lot. I heard that only sea spirit masters who pass the test can ascend the mountain and enter the Sea God's Temple. Otherwise, it will be blocked by the light of the Sea God. This was the information that Tang San had gathered during his 2 days of rest. Because there were too few people who could go to that place, there weren't many people in the city who knew the details. Then wouldn't his test be many times harder than ours? Ma Hongjun chuckled. But this Popetive King Fifth is very strong. It's normal for him to be stronger than us. I hope he fails the first test. Tang San shook his head. Only the two purple-clothed sea soul masters knew how many steps there were in the Sea God Mountain. Judging from the other party's expression, there must be a lot of them. It was indeed a lot, and not just a little bit. The two purple-robed soul masters knew that there were 1,001 steps on the Sea God's Mountain. Under the obstruction of the light of the Sea God, the first test was already so difficult that the two purple-robed soul masters didn't dare to imagine. It's not a matter of whether it's difficult or not. The purple-robed soul master sighed. It's an impossible problem. There are a total of 1,001 steps on the Sea God Mountain. It's not easy for us without the obstruction of the light of the Sea God. We need to be 120% alert. With the obstruction of the light of the Sea God, we can't even go up 200 to 300 steps. Hulaina and the others were shocked when they heard this. These two were soul sages. They couldn't even go up 200 to 300 steps? Popetive's first test was 1,001 steps? This while they were still in shock. Wang Feng slowly said, "This is only a part of the first test." Everyone, the two purple-robed soul masters were stunned. A part? You're dividing the first test into upper, middle, and lower? It's too strange. The second test is to withstand 3 sea god locks and sink 5,500 meters. When Wang Feng said this, the two purple-robed soul masters swallowed a mouthful of water. 3 sea god locks would weigh at least tens of thousands of kilograms. 5,500 meters was the depth of the central sea region of the Sea God's Island. Compared to the entire ocean, which was tens of thousands of meters deep, this 5,500 meters was nothing at all. However, the central sea region of the Sea God's Island was different. Above the central sea region was the Sea God's Mountain. The Sea God's Mountain suppressed the central sea region. There were many aquatic spirit beasts trapped in the central sea region. Other than being trapped by the Sea God locks, they also had to withstand the peerless pressure of the Sea God's Mountain. Otherwise, the Sea God's locks wouldn't be able to trap those powerful aquatic spirit beasts. This was the most difficult part of the test. 1,000 meters, which was Hulaina's 6th black rank test, was already very difficult. It wasn't inferior to passing through the light of the Sea God and ascending more than 100 steps. Sinking into the central sea region, one would have to withstand the weight of the Sea God's locks, the pressure of the sea, and the pressure of the Sea God's Mountain. They would have to face the situation where they couldn't breathe in the sea and would have to consume a lot of soul power. These kinds of pressure would bring a lot of obstruction to the soul masters. Their lives were also in danger. The deeper they sank, the greater the danger. 4 soul sages like them. They would be able to sink deeper after being possessed by their martial souls because of their swordfish martial souls. From this point of view, it was more advantageous for a sea soul master to pass this test than to pass through the light of the sea god. But for a land soul master, it would be even more difficult. Not to mention 5,500 meters and 3 sea gods locks. If it was them, your first test is really an impossible task. The 2 purple-robed soul masters showed some pity in their eyes. It was the first time they heard of the sea god's test. Although there were only 2 tests, it was much more difficult than Tang San, who had the 9 tests of the sea god. On the other side, Tang San and the others naturally heard it clearly. Will the sea god know that these people from the martial spirit palace have ulterior motives and deliberately make things difficult for him? The group of people looked at each other. After listening to the content of the other party's test, they suddenly felt that their test was very simple. How is this making things difficult for him? They want him to die. Oscar said with a smile, compared to the surface, it's easier for a sea soul master to pass in the sea. But for us land soul masters, it's more difficult. Although I don't know the details, it's obvious that the other party's test. Oscar chuckled. Serve him right. Ning Rongrong stared at the white-clothed Popetiff. She thought that she had mistaken this bastard as Wang Feng and said so many intimate words of love to him. She couldn't help but want to cut him into pieces. But this guy should know Wang Feng very well. At that time, he acted as if it was real. Zhu Qing, don't you feel relieved after hearing it? Ning Rongrong looked at Zhu Qing, who was silent beside her, and patted her chest comfortably. Zhu Qing was silent for a few seconds before she nodded and said, well, serves him right, just when they were still sighing with relief. At this time, they heard Wang Feng speak again. There's still the last part. Chapter 730. As soon as he said that, the 2 purple-clothed soul masters were stunned on the spot. There's more? Is this really just the first exam? The 2 purple-clothed soul masters said with dry mouths, and their minds were buzzing. Wang Feng was also a little depressed. That golden light had clearly dissipated by more than half, and Wang Feng only felt that there were 2 exams, because the content of the next exam would only be revealed after passing each exam. But when Wang Feng used his spirit to sense the weak mark between his eyebrows, he found that the first exam was really divided into 3 parts. There was only 1 reward. This was abnormal, very abnormal. He clearly only had 2 exams, but it was divided into several parts. What was the difference between this and the 9 exams? Wang Feng was very suspicious that the sea god deliberately tampered with the content of the exam. It was very likely that the sea god felt that the power he sent down was inexplicably reduced. After only 2 exams, he felt that it might not be enough and was not satisfied. He had forcefully added other content into his 2 tests. Wang Feng was a little speechless. This was like having a wish, and this wish was to have 3 more wishes. Too shameless. Too much. There was only 1 reward, but the content of the exam was so much. This was simply cheating. The sea god must be deliberately making things difficult for me. The last part, Wang Feng thought for a while and continued. Tame 3 80,000-year-old sea spirit beasts in the Central Sea, cut off the sea god's lock, and bring them out of the Central Sea. The 2 purple-clothed soul masters, this doesn't seem to be very difficult. Hulaina said, Teacher, with your strength, it shouldn't be difficult to tame 80,000-year-old soul beasts, right? Popetiff's strength could even tame 100,000-year-old soul beasts and bring them back from the Great Stardow Forest. With Teacher's strength, wouldn't it be easy for him to tame 80,000-year-old soul beasts? The sea region under the Sea God Mountain is filled with extremely ferocious soul beasts since ancient times. However, the 2 purple-clothed sea spirit masters' voices were trembling. Most of them live thousands of meters below the surface of the sea. After so many years, most of the sea spirit beasts below have either been tamed or killed by us powerful sea spirit masters to become soul rings. The remaining ones are extremely powerful. Even we, the sea spirit masters, can't kill them or tame them. We can only use the sea god's mountain and the sea god's lock to suppress them. It can be said that every single one of the sea spirit beasts that are chained down are extremely powerful. Even the head consecrator can't tame them, but it takes a lot of effort to kill them. The losses outweigh the gains. Unless the great consecrator personally takes action, even the 7 saints would find it difficult to kill him in the sea. The 2 purple-clothed cultivators trembled as they spoke. To put it bluntly, now in the central sea domain beneath the sea god mountain, there were only some tough bones that were hard to chew. Those soft and weak ones have been tamed long ago. After taming them, we still have to cut off the sea god's lock. This is even more impossible. The purple-clothed sea spirit master continued. The sea god's lock is made of the most precious metal in our sea, the sky blue heavy gold. It contains a little bit of the sea god's power and is indestructible. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to bind those ferocious sea beasts. This is even more difficult than the previous 2. No, it's actually the same, because it's impossible to complete. Towards the end, the 2 purple-clothed sea spirit masters seemed to be subverted. Wang Feng didn't say anything. He could only feel that this test was filled with deep malice. What did the sea god want to do? Did I eat his rice? It's just a test. And he gave me these things? There was only one Rakshasa god. Could it be that the sea god knew about the situation on the Rakshasa god side? So, he changed his method? Forcefully adding 3 contents to my test? Thinking about it was just thinking, but Wang Feng still had to pass. Hulaina and the other 2 also understood that these 3 parts were simply more exaggerated than the previous one. Your test locations are all in the central ring-shaped sea area. Come with us. The 2 purple-clothed sea spirit masters looked at the 2 groups of people and led them out of the city. Then, they sped towards the center of the sea god's island. There was no transportation on the sea god's island. Although the sea god's island was very big, for most of the high-level soul masters, if they hurried at full speed, they could explore it completely in 2 days at most. Therefore, they didn't need any transportation. The 2 soul sages were very fast, but on land, their speed was not much faster than Tang San or Hulaina. As an agility type, Zhu Zhuqing was not inferior at all. She even surpassed them by a little. Wang Feng estimated that the entire island was about 500 miles in radius. The topography in the center was gradually rising, and the sea level was gradually rising. However, the rise was relatively gentle. After passing through a forest, they arrived at the central sea area around dusk. Although it was called a sea area, it was actually not wide. It was just a large ring-shaped lake. As far as the eye could see, it was at least 5,000 meters in diameter. There was a mountain in the center. The mountain was not very tall. It was about 500 to 600 meters tall. However, the mountain was grayish-brown. From afar, it looked like a brown gemstone. Right now, under the illumination of the setting sun, it had a faint red luster. Against the surrounding seawater, it sparkled with red light and was extremely beautiful. At the highest point of the mountain, one could vaguely see a palace that looked like white jade. It was standing in the middle of this sea area. That is our sea god's mountain. The sea god's palace is on top of it. The 2 purple-clothed sea spirit masters looked at it with reverence. It is also the most sacred place on the sea god's island. Under the sea god's mountain, there are a total of 72 sea god's locks. Now, most of them are empty. There are fewer aquatic spirit beasts in the sea now. Most of them have been tamed and won't attack us, sea spirit masters. However, if a sea spirit master who has not taken the test enters the sea area without permission, some of the aquatic spirit beasts will attack him. But you don't have to worry. You are taking the test, so you won't be attacked by these aquatic spirit beasts. A few of the most ferocious aquatic spirit beasts will only be 5,000 meters deep. They won't float to the surface. This is because the higher they go, the more pressure they will have to bear from the sea god's mountain. Therefore, if there are no special circumstances, those ferocious and untamed aquatic spirit beasts won't come up. The tamed aquatic spirit beasts don't have sea god's locks. Therefore, they won't be under much pressure from the sea god's mountain. After the two of them finished their introductions, they did not speak anymore. They just looked at the group of people quietly. They could only answer the questions of these two groups of people, but they could not help them. Tang San and the rest discussed for a while. Without any hesitation, they decided to give it a try. They could go up and down the stairs. Once they realized that something was wrong, they just had to come down immediately. Teacher, let's begin. Hulaina looked at Wang Feng. She took out the diving suit that she had prepared from her soul tool. Chapter 731. These were all prepared in the past 2 days. Seahorse City naturally sold such items. These diving suits were made of special materials. They could only allow them to move in the sea better. However, they could not reduce the pressure of the seawater. Hulaina was wearing a light blue diving suit. There were fin-like structures on the suit. Because it was tight, it could be said that her perfect and mature figure was completely displayed. There was a hint of excitement on her fair face. This suit could guide soul power better. It was also made of a special material. Evil Moon and Yin were wearing a black diving suit and a red diving suit. Wang Feng did not wear any. He was still wearing his original suit. Wang Feng nodded slightly and said, "The sea is different. You can go down the stairs at any time. However, once your soul power is exhausted, even breathing will become a problem. Try it first. When you reach your limit, you can stop. I have another way." This was also one of the difficulties of the assessment. In the next moment, the three of them jumped down. Wang Feng also jumped up gently. When he landed in the sea, there was not much splash. The moment the four of them entered the sea, a layer of black light appeared on their bodies. This was the symbol of their black assessment. Wang Feng's body was glowing with a faint golden light. "Teacher, the sea is so beautiful." They sank less than 10 meters. The three of them only felt a slight pressure. They did not feel anything. They did not even use their soul power to resist the pressure of the sea water. The three of them were physically strong. Hulaina was like a flexible fish. She swam around because she had been trained to swim before. Evil Moon and Yin were also looking at the sea with excitement. This sea was obviously different from the sea outside. It was almost dusk. However, the three of them could see everything under the sea. What they saw was a small forest-like vegetation in the water. It was mainly coral and seaweed. There were also other strange plants. There were also some flowers that only bloomed in the sea. It was a dazzling sight. The three of them could not take it all in. However, there were not many ordinary animals. There were many aquatic soul beasts. However, most of them were not strong. They were from 100 to 1,000 years old. Although there were many powerful aquatic spirit beasts locked up in this ring-shaped Central Sea region, most of them had been tamed and lived in this sea region for a long time. They had many descendants, and not all of them were powerful aquatic spirit beasts. There were some stronger sea spirit beasts that tried to get close to them, but they left immediately after sensing the aura that the four of them were emitting. The three of them swam toward the sea god's mountain in the center of the sea as they enjoyed the scenery below. There was also a white and chubby little dolphin beside Hulaina. It was only about 3 or 4 meters long. Its whole body was snow white, and it had a pair of lively big eyes that seemed to be able to speak. It didn't take long for it to become close to Hulaina. From time to time, it would surround the three of them and emit a pleasant dolphin sound. However, the closer they were to the sea god's mountain, the fewer sea spirit beasts there were. When they were about 500 meters away from the sea god mountain, the little dolphin also reluctantly left the four of them, as if it knew that it couldn't get any closer. After entering the 500-meter range of the sea god mountain, the three of them felt a special pressure coming from the sea god mountain. Wang Feng narrowed his eyes and looked at the sea god mountain in front of him. Even at the bottom of the sea god mountain seemed to extend endlessly. Furthermore, the material of the sea god mountain was very special. It wasn't corroded by the seawater at all, and it still had a brown jade-like color. If one looked at it from afar, it looked more like a pillar standing in the sea. After sinking for about 50 meters, the three of their faces changed slightly. This was because they felt as if their bodies were being squeezed. A huge pressure came from the seawater and the sea god mountain. At the same time, they saw the sea god's locks. These sea gods' locks extended from the sea god mountain and floated quietly at the bottom of the sea. The sizes of the chains were different. Some were the size of bamboo, some were the size of a human leg, and some were even the size of a tree. The three of them swam to the nearest chain. The chain was bluish-silver in color, and there was a line of small words at the position where it came out of the sea god mountain. The general meaning was, this chain weighs 5,300 kilograms, and it locks a 10,000-year-old sea spirit beast, the turquoise-eyed sea jade snake. The length of the chain is 600 meters. This chain was only about a few meters long, and it wasn't thick. Obviously, the turquoise-eyed sea jade snake had been completely tamed. Therefore, this chain had been taken back. That is to say, we need to find at least one chain that is the same distance as the test. Evil Moon pondered. Then we have to wrap the chain around our bodies before the real test begins? Evil Moon sank to a depth of 750 meters, Yin to 850 meters, and Hulaina to 1,000 meters. There were many chains on the mountain wall of the sea god mountain. They looked very dense, and there were many choices. The three of them quickly made their choice. There were too many chains, and it was easy to choose. Evil Moon chose a chain that was more than 700 meters long and weighed about 6,000 kilograms. Yin chose a chain that was 800 meters long and weighed more than 7,000 kilograms. Hulaina chose a chain that was more than 900 meters long and close to 1,000 meters long. It weighed more than 8,000 kilograms. Although these chains are heavy, there is resistance from the seawater. The weight that really falls on us is not much, and it's lighter than I imagined. The three chains were placed very close to each other, and the chains themselves were not very thick. Before they put on the chains, the three of them thought so. However, when they fastened the chains to their bodies, their expressions changed. They felt a huge weight coming from the chains from afar. The chains weighed thousands of kilograms, but at least 1/5 of the weight fell on their bodies, and it was not affected by the buoyancy of the seawater at all. The three of them sank rapidly. At this moment, the terrifying sea pressure and the weight of the chains made the three of them feel a huge threat. Without any hesitation, the three of them quickly circulated their soul power and began to stop the downward trend. After that, he no longer spoke because every word he spoke would consume his soul power. Under the sea, they relied entirely on the circulation of their soul power to breathe, so that their bodies would not lose consciousness because they could not breathe. This chain is not simple. I'm afraid it is indeed blessed with a special power, or it would not be able to lock those sea spirit beasts. Wang Feng looked at the situation of the three of them and frowned slightly. Their first test was more dangerous, and it was not as difficult as crossing the light of the sea god, but it was definitely much more dangerous. After all, it was not Tang San and the others who were valued by the sea god. The three of them were not valued by the sea god, and the tests were very dangerous. After the three of them circulated their soul power, they stopped the downward trend. If they sank like this, their bodies would not be able to adapt to the sudden increase in pressure. Chapter 732. They could easily lose their lives. They could only sink slowly and give their bodies time to adapt. However, this is also a form of extreme training. I don't know how much pressure I'll have to endure for every meter I sink. Wang Feng thought to himself, these tests were too dangerous. No wonder the death rate in the black test was so high. A few hundred meters was only a matter of seconds for the three of them. However, a few 100,000 seconds might not be enough now. Wang Feng saw that the three of them had sunk a certain distance, and he planned to let them try it on their own first. After that, Wang Feng walked around the sea god's mountain for half a day. After confirming the situation, he found three chains that were at least 5,000 meters long. However, these chains weighed at least 70,000 kilograms each. They were also relatively thick. Because they were so much thicker, they weighed a lot more compared to their length. However, the weight on Wang Feng's body was probably only 10 to 20,000 kilograms. Evidently, these chains had some special strength to support them. That was why their weight could be concentrated on Hui Yuhao's body. It's not that heavy, it's just that the pressure on a soul master is too strong. Wang Feng trapped the 3 chains on his body. The pressure from the seawater, the 3 chains, and the pressure from the sea god's mountain. Under these 3 forces, Wang Feng felt as if he was carrying weight for the first time. With Wang Feng's current physique, the mysterious underworld armor weighed close to 25,000 kilograms. Wang Feng didn't feel much even if he didn't use his soul power. However, he could feel a faint pressure now. Although it was very small, Wang Feng was still a little excited. His body was indeed very strong now. His soul bones, soul rings, meteoric tear, and karmic fire were all supporting him. His body was already very strong. Wang Feng sank rapidly. The deeper he sank, the heavier the chains. The pressure from the seawater also increased. The sea god's mountain still couldn't be seen. The sea god's mountain was less than 1,000 meters above sea level. However, he didn't know how deep it was in the sea. Hulaina and the other 2 sank very quickly. As they sank before Wang Feng, they reached 100 meters below sea level in less than half a day. After reaching 100 meters below sea level, that kind of pressure simply came crashing down in an overwhelming manner. The pressure of the seawater was extremely terrifying. Not to mention, with the support of the sea god mountain, the pressure in the seawater was much stronger than the sea outside. In addition to the weight of the chains, the 3 of them were pressed down until their bodies turned red. His soul power had already been pushed to the limit. I feel like my whole body is about to split open. Evil Moon reluctantly used his soul power to transmit his voice. Hulaina and Yin were silent. Evil Moon was actually at a disadvantage because he was a tool soul master. He couldn't use his martial soul to enhance his strength to resist these pressures. Fortunately, Evil Moon had 2 soul bones, which could also enhance the body of a soul master. But compared to Hulaina and Yin, he was still a little lacking. After entering the sea for 100 meters, Tang Wulin felt that he had to carefully control his soul power and control the chains with every meter he sank. He controlled all the power in his body. I could still hold on for a while. Yin let out a muffled groan as the flame, overlord martial spirit, entered his body. He felt the pressure on him lessen significantly. However, his soul power was being drained even faster. Hulaina's mutated heavenly fox martial soul was also attached to his body. The 3 of them went down together, sinking 1 meter at a time. Their bodies gradually reached their limit. Green veins appeared on the foreheads and necks of the 3 men. At a depth of 130 meters, the 3 of them stopped. Although they couldn't see the sky at this time, they knew that it was dark and more than half a day had passed. It's the limit. Evil Moon's intermittent voice came. I feel that if I move another meter forward, I'm afraid my body won't be able to hold on. Fortunately, when Pope Tiff came, he gave us a few thousand kilograms of weight training. Otherwise, I don't think I could hold on for 100 meters. Hulaina and Yin were silent. Indeed, the weight training that Pope Tiff gave them along the way had played a great role in the current assessment. But the 3 of them were almost at their limit. Hulaina should be able to go down another 20 to 30 meters because she had 3 soul bones. Yan's martial soul was much stronger, but his soul power was not enough to support it. Where's Pope Tiff? The 3 of them wanted to stop. However, as soon as they stopped, that omnipresent pressure continued to crush their bodies. It was unbearable. At this time, a scene that suffocated the 3 of them appeared in front of them. Above them was a figure with 3 stone chains that resembled coiling dragons on his back. At this moment, he was descending at an extremely fast speed. It was visible to the naked eye. Almost in the blink of an eye, he was descending at least a few meters. Its teacher, Hulaina's attention was completely attracted, causing her to feel the pressure all over her body, as if she didn't feel it. It only took Wang Feng a while to catch up with Hulaina and the other 2. After entering the range of 100 meters, Wang Feng finally felt a more obvious pressure on his body. After catching up with the 3 of them, Wang Feng paused for a while and said, "Can't hold on anymore?" The 3 of them nodded reluctantly. "We plan to go up for a while to reduce some of the pressure and rest for a while to recover our soul power." Hulaina said, "Although this place is very dangerous, it's also a kind of training for us. The seawater here contains extremely rich energy. If we cultivate, it should be helpful for us. Wang Feng nodded. The three of them seemed to have thought about it. After we become stronger, we'll continue to descend and break through our limits, Hulaina whispered. The assessment time is 1 year. We have 1 year to descend to the depth of the assessment. I think this is also a special help for us. We have the confidence to do so. Wang Feng glanced at Hulaina and the other two with a hint of appreciation. It was good enough that they could understand this. 1 year seemed to be a long time, but in fact, the further they went, especially when they were about to reach the target depth, every meter of descent was a huge test, because the pressure would increase exponentially with the depth. Therefore, the correct way to start the assessment was to let them become stronger in this environment and break through their limits little by little. It was definitely dangerous. If they were careless, they would be swallowed by the endless pressure. 1 year is too slow. Wang Feng said slowly, 5 months. You have to finish the first assessment in 5 months. There are at least 4 assessments in the months of demons. The assessment time will only be longer, not shorter. If the assessment took 1 year, it would be impossible to finish it in the next 3 years. The progress was too slow. Although the three of them were from the martial spirit palace, Wang Feng had other plans for them. The three of them were stunned when they heard this. 5 months? How could they finish it in 5 months? Chapter 733. Teacher, you want to help us? Hulaina suddenly asked, but this assessment, if there is help from others, there should be a problem, right? Wang Feng glanced at Hulaina with some astonishment. Yes, teacher. Yin said in a muffled voice, the sea god is a god. The assessment he gave must be very familiar with us. I think that since he can set different goals for different people, then in the eyes of the sea god, we have the potential to complete the assessment. It's just to see if we can exert our potential. Wang Fengxin thought that the three of them were not stupid to be able to think of this. This perspective was a form of reverse thinking. Indeed, the sea god was a god after all. He could give different tests based on each person's talent and aptitude. This meant that he could detect the limit of each person's potential. But was the limit of potential so easy to reach? It was obviously impossible. It was like a test paper. In theory, it was possible to get full marks, but how many people could do it? There were definitely very few people, which was why the failure rate of the black level assessment was so high. The fact that Hulaina and the other two could see this meant that they had thought about it. They thought that the three of them could stimulate their potential and pass the assessment in the end. This was correct. I didn't expect Yin to see this. Not bad. Wang Feng nodded. Yin said embarrassedly, it's all because I'm learning from teacher. I feel like I'm thinking more and more. Wang Feng looked at Yan's honest expression and nodded. This flattery was not bad. Your thinking is correct. Wang Feng affirmed, but then he changed the topic and said calmly, but a year is too long. I do want to help you. The three of them looked at each other. With teacher's help, we can definitely pass the assessment quickly, but this doesn't mean much to us. Hulaina said carefully, without us becoming stronger through cultivation and eventually sinking to the destination, this doesn't mean much to us. Although the assessment didn't say that we can't cheat to help, I think this shouldn't be good, right? Shiyue and Yin also looked at Wang Feng carefully. They didn't know why Sir Popediff did this. You're wrong. Wang Feng shook his head and said, I'm not helping you to pass the test quickly, and I won't take you down with me. When I say help, I mean help you to stimulate your potential even faster, even surpassing one's own potential. Of course, it was impossible for him to bring the three of them down to the location of the assessment. It was too simple. Wang Feng estimated that his limit should be around 4,000 meters, so it was very easy to reduce their pressure and bring them down. The simplest method was naturally to use the blue flag to disperse the seawater, which would greatly reduce the pressure on the three of them and allow them to quickly reach their destination. But this was cheating, and Wang Feng naturally wouldn't help them. The three of them looked at Wang Feng in confusion. He didn't understand what he meant. Control your soul power and continue to descend. Wang Feng didn't answer them, but said directly, The three of them thought about it, and Hulaina was the first to continue sinking, indicating that she trusted Wang Feng unconditionally. The same was true for Evil Moon and Yin. Soon, it was only about 10 meters away. Evil Moon's eyes began to turn white, his face flushed red, and the soul power fluctuations in his body began to weaken. The black light on his body also gradually faded away. His skin even began to crack with many bloody lines. His body had already reached its limit. If it continued to descend, Evil Moon would definitely die. His spirit was already on the verge of collapse. If it weren't for his extreme trust in Wang Feng, he wouldn't have continued to descend. Hulaina and Yin could barely hold on. At this time, their spirits were a little dizzy, but they were still awake. They looked at Evil Moon anxiously. Seeing this, Wang Feng turned his hand, and the green lotus white flag suddenly appeared. The green light instantly enveloped Evil Moon. The next moment, in the green light, Evil Moon's consciousness gradually recovered, and the bloody lines on his body began to heal. Abundant energy enveloped the three of them. The three of them trembled. Although they could still feel the pressure, they felt that their dizzy spirits were inexplicably much more awake. The fatigue on their bodies was also gradually recovering. Hulaina and Yin looked at the flag in Wang Feng's hand in shock. They had seen this flag in the Great Star Do Forest before. It could disperse the domain of 100,000-year soul beast. But it actually had such a powerful ability. The green flag's function, in addition to dispersing the domain, also had the effect of calming one's spirit. At the same time, after absorbing the five-headed star dragon, there was an additional recovery effect, although the recovery ability was not comparable to the Golden Lotus. But this was the effect of an area of effect recovery. It could not relieve the pressure brought by the seawater and the chains for the three of them, but could relax their spirits and recover their tired bodies as well as their injuries. Immediately afterward, Wang Feng withdrew the green flag and summoned the blue flag. It formed a water hole, like a bubble, enveloping the three of them. In an instant, the three of them felt the pressure on their bodies weaken sharply. But with the chains, it was not completely eliminated. The pressure slowly weakened with the size of the bubble. But abundant energy seeped out from the water wall of the bubble. Cultivate. Wang Feng only said 2 words. Yes, he was using the green flag to immediately recover the three of them from their extreme state. In fact, the most important thing was that the spiritual recovery was very important. Under such high-intensity pressure, the consumption of one's spirit was even greater. The three of them suppressed the excitement in their hearts and felt that their minds were a little more awake at this moment. They immediately untied the chains and meditated on the spot to cultivate. And at this time, the benefits of this training came. The moment the chains were untied, it was equivalent to all the pressure dispersing. The three of them could not help but cry out in pleasure. It was very similar to the situation when Wang Feng used the meteoric tear for the first time to train to the extreme. After such a huge consumption, the cultivation speed was greatly improved. The key was that the energy was extremely rich. Under the effect of the blue flag, the three of them quickly cultivated in the sea that was more than 100 meters deep. Wang Feng found that the bubble formed by the blue flag could not only reduce the pressure of the seawater, but also allow the energy in the seawater to seep out for the three of them to absorb. It was equivalent to a filtering and purification effect. It could increase the concentration of the energy and indirectly increase the cultivation speed of the three of them. Using this method, the speed of the first assessment would definitely be greatly improved. At the same time, the benefits they would obtain would be even greater. Because they did not need to recuperate, they could save a lot of time and maximize the limit of their training without worrying about the danger to their lives. Thus, they could surpass their own potential. It could also speed up their cultivation speed and the progress of sinking. The actual time of the assessment would be reduced by at least half, or even more. Wang Feng himself was not in a hurry, because when he used the blue flag, it was also a kind of cultivation for him. Moreover, Wang Feng's cultivation speed would be even faster. It could also help the three of them cultivate. Therefore, after watching the three of them cultivate, Wang Feng did not stay idle. He also meditated and cultivated. Thanks to Wang Feng's meditation, the energy in the seawater rushed into Wang Feng's body. It even caused the seawater to flow. Hulaina, who was the closest to Wang Feng, could feel this terrifying cultivation speed the clearest. P.S. There are more. Chapter 734. The storm-like energy surged into Wang Feng's body from the outside. The energy seemed to have found a place to stay and rushed in from the seawater through the bubble membrane. Hulaina felt like she was a small boat on the edge of storm, and her cultivation seemed to be accelerated by a few times. The shock in her heart couldn't be described with words. Hulaina had never seen Pope Diff officially cultivate. Even when she was traveling with them, she rarely saw Pope Diff meditating. This was because Wang Feng didn't spend most of his time on cultivation. His physique determined that he naturally had the ability to cultivate. Meditating wouldn't be much faster unless it was in the blessed enclave. Only then would there be obvious improvements in meditation. Wang Feng was more focused on cultivating his spiritual power, and he placed more emphasis on this. He had already researched the various abilities that he possessed. Furthermore, Wang Feng's current soul power requirement was too high. At this moment, Hulaina sensed Pope Diff's cultivation beside her and was deeply shocked. Such a terrifying cultivation speed. Why doesn't Pope Diff's soul power rank seem very high? Hulaina felt that it was a little strange. Pope Diff's soul power rank had always been a mystery. He seemed to only have 5 soul rings. But in reality, he might be hiding a few. Coupled with the uniqueness of his martial soul, Hulaina couldn't completely see through Wang Wu's soul power rank. But with his current cultivation speed, Hulaina knew that Lord Pope Diff's soul power rank definitely wasn't low. The other party's meditation cultivation could directly increase their cultivation speed. Who would believe it if they told others about it? The reason why Wang Feng's meditation cultivation speed was so fast, apart from his physique, was also because of his spiritual power. Meditation had something to do with spiritual energy. Why was it that a high-level soul master's meditation for a minute was more than a low-level soul master's meditation for an hour? Apart from his soul rings, it was also related to his spiritual power. Wang Feng's current spiritual power had reached a very terrifying level. From a small stream in the beginning, it had become a large stream after passing through the Rakshasa secret realm. It was a little like a small river flowing together. Compared to the slow progress of his soul power, his spiritual power was improving rapidly. This was closely related to the front secret word. With such a huge amount of spiritual power, meditating at this time would naturally produce such a terrifying momentum of energy gathering like a storm. Hulaina didn't think too much about it. Taking advantage of this period of time, she quickly cultivated. This cultivation lasted for half a day. Wang Feng couldn't help but sigh when he opened his eyes. His soul force hadn't increased by much, and he was still some distance away from rank 69. However, Wang Feng was only 100 meters below the surface of the sea. Once he reached his limit, he would undergo some extreme training. By then, his cultivation speed would be greatly enhanced. I feel like I've leveled up at least half a level. Yin was the first to speak. He said with a look of surprise, "A few more times, and I should be able to reach level 68. Hulaina also let out a sigh of relief. She was the closest to level up. She had leveled up by at least half a level. She was not far from level 69. So did Evil Moon. At this point, everyone finally understood the true meaning behind Sir Poktiv's help. Feeling that their bodies were filled with power, the feeling of becoming stronger made the 3 of them want to continue with the test. Wang Feng didn't stop them. After taking back the blue flag, the 3 of them put on the chains again and continued to sink. Although they had become stronger, the 3 of them still didn't sink fast. That was because more than 100 levels was their limit. They were now breaking through their own limits, and it wasn't that easy. It was like a person could only do 100 push-ups. No matter how well you let him rest, it was incomparably difficult to do one more on top of 100. Wang Feng didn't care about them. He pulled on the 3 chains on his body and sank toward the bottom of the sea at a rapid speed. The 3 of them, This kind of momentum caused the three chains to slightly stir the water at the bottom of the sea, stirring up trembling waves. I wonder what teacher's limit is. Yin watched as Wang Feng gradually disappeared from his sight. He was 120% focused and slowly sank. The three of them couldn't answer this question. Just like that, Wang Feng sank at an extremely exaggerated speed. In just a few days, Wang Feng had reached a depth of 1,000 meters. At this time, the three of them were not even 200 meters. Halfway through, Wang Feng would come back twice a day to recover the three of them who had reached their limits. Then, he would take them to cultivate. After reaching a depth of 1,000 meters, Wang Feng gradually felt the pressure on his body. Even the two purple-robed soul sages might not be able to withstand the pressure below 1,000 meters for a long time. If they were trapped by three chains that weighed tens of thousands of kilograms, the two purple-robed soul sages wouldn't be able to survive for long, even if they had a martial soul like the swordfish. After 1,000 meters, Wang Feng's speed gradually decreased. He could only descend 100 meters a day. It wasn't that he had reached his limit. He could only descend so far because the pressure and the chains were too heavy. In the early stages, the chains acted as a pushing force. When the three of them were first tied to the chains, they were directly pressed down by the weight of the chains. However, as the sea deepened, the buoyancy increased and the chains acted as a hindrance. Simply put, they had to pull the chains down. Wang Feng estimated that the other end of the chains was at the bottom of the sea god's mountain. It was equivalent to pulling out the 5,000-meter-long chain from the bottom of the water. This was extraordinarily strenuous. Hulaina and the other two were only 1,000 meters long. When they reached 300 meters, they realized that the chains weren't heavy anymore. However, they had to pull the chains along, and it was even more difficult. This was the turning point of the first test. This was why Wang Feng's speed decreased after 1,000 meters. At the same time, Wang Feng and the other three didn't seem to be in the sea at all. They were focused on passing this test. This kind of training was actually very terrifying. If they weren't careful, even if their bodies could withstand it, their minds wouldn't be able to. They used meditation to replace cultivation every day for a fixed 6 hours. Fortunately, Wang Feng's green lotus flag could restore their minds. Every time, they would recover from their mental breakdown and enter a frenzied state of cultivation. When they were hungry, they would eat the rations stored in their soul tools. Furthermore, their bodies weren't dirty when they soaked in the sea. On the contrary, the sea water was very pure. In less than a month, the three of them had increased by more than one rank. At the same time, they had sunk to a depth of more than 350 meters. This was a huge improvement. Wang Feng had also reached 2,000 meters. Into Chapter 1. Chapter 735. The depth of 2,000 meters was truly terrifying. However, Wang Feng's speed did not suddenly decrease after reaching 1,000 meters. Instead, he maintained a constant speed. At the same time, at 2,000 meters, Wang Feng also had to channel his soul power to pull the three chains. Otherwise, his speed would be too slow. With pure physical strength, Wang Feng could still withstand the sea pressure, but pulling the three chains without a point of support was very difficult without using soul power. In fact, it could be seen from this that Wang Feng's current physical limit was very difficult to reach. At the same time, on the coast, 1 month, for Tang San and the others, it was not an ordinary month. The moment they ascended the stairs, the light of the sea god with boundless pressure attacked from all directions. In the first 20 or so steps, Shrek's 7 monsters passed them relatively easily. The steps were not high, only half a meter, and they went up in a circular shape. Bai Qinxiang and Shun Lingqi were very slow. They were much slower than Ning Rongrong and Oscar. For example, Bai Qinxiang's physical fitness was average, and she could not climb more than 10 steps. Shun Lingqi was a little better. Her soul power was much higher. At first, she could barely break through the 20th step, but she was almost at her limit. As for the rest, the strongest, Tang San, even directly ascended the 52nd step in one go. Dai Mubai reached the 40th step. Ma Hongjun reached the 34th step. Ning Rongrong only reached the 29th step, and Oscar reached the 29th step. It could be said that support-type soul masters were generally much weaker. Ning Rongrong relied on her 9 treasures star glazed pagoda to enhance herself. It was the same for Oscar. Therefore, in comparison, Bai Qinxiang did not have any support-type abilities. Her physical strength was not high, and her soul power was weak. That was why it was so difficult for her to reach the 16th step. Besides Tang San, among the 9 people, the most shocking one was Zhu Zhuqing. She reached the 46th step in one go, even higher than Dai Mubai. She was only 4 steps away from Tang San. One had to know that Tang San could pull out all the stops. 200,000-year soul bones, 1 external soul bone, and 1 skull bone, coupled with his powerful physique, the mysterious heaven method, and 2 domains, he was able to reach the 52nd step in one go. However, Zhu Zhuqing was an agility-type warrior who only had 2 soul bones. Yet she was able to reach the 46th level in one go. This meant that Zhu Zhuqing's physical strength had reached an extremely high level. Everyone blushed with shame when they saw this. However, when they thought about how Zhu Zhuqing's soul power was only 1 step away from rank 70, as well as Zhu Zhuqing's transformation, they understood. But they didn't understand. In the following month, Zhu Zhuqing's improvement could be said to be the most abnormal among the 9 people. Almost every time Zhu Zhuqing reached her limit, there would be an obvious improvement in the next level. This directly led to Zhu Zhuqing being only 1 step away from Tang San a month later. A month later, Tang San's limit reached the 87th step, and the rest of the people had obvious improvements. During this month, Tang San also discovered the secret of the Neptune's light. It was similar to the sinking of the sea. To be precise, he discovered it on the first day. Although we have to endure enormous pressure on every step, I've thought about it. If we gather the strength of 9 people and help 1 person, we should be able to reach the 100th step very quickly. We might even reach our destination in a short period of time. Because we are a team, if we want to pass through the Neptune's light and climb the steps, we must be united. But at the same time, the Neptune's light is also testing our own potential. The Neptune is a god, so the test he gave us must be based on each of our potential. In other words, we all have the potential to climb the test steps, but we need each of us to stimulate our potential. These days, I think everyone has felt that under the pressure of the Neptune's light, our soul power has increased very quickly. Especially after climbing the limit steps, the speed of cultivation will increase greatly. This is actually equivalent to stimulating our potential. If Wang Feng was here, he would be able to understand Tang San's words, just like Hulaina. He could see the key point of this test. The rest of the people more or less understood. So, we need to improve ourselves as much as possible in this year. If we can't complete it at the last moment, then we will combine the strength of the team and help the latter complete the test together. After all, not everyone could perfectly stimulate their potential. Everyone's willpower and spirit were different. Tang San felt that he could stimulate his potential in this state. But he couldn't make everyone climb as hard as he did, and do nothing but become stronger and cultivate. That was why he considered using the team's strength to help the other party in the end. The premise was that most of the steps in front must be climbed as hard as possible. The rest of the people naturally agreed. And a month later, Zhu Zhuqing was the first to reach rank 70. The rest of the people also leveled up one after another. After reaching rank 70, the Sea God's Island's great consecrator, Possessi, appeared. This was the second time they had seen Possessi. I'm here today to look for her. Possessi still had a gentle smile on his face as he looked at Zhu Zhuqing. According to the rules of the Sea God, the participants who qualify for the Black Rank test have a chance to obtain a God-bestowed soul ring. A God-bestowed soul ring can allow you to obtain the soul skill you need the most, as well as the highest soul ring age you can withstand. In short, the stronger you are, the stronger the soul ring you obtain. At this point, Possessi gently opened his hand, revealing a golden bead. The bead was pure gold, but it was a bit like glass. There was a faint airflow flowing inside, and it was very beautiful. God bestowed soul ring? There's such a good thing? Ma Hong-jun scratched his head. Doesn't that mean that if I can withstand a 100,000-year soul ring, I can obtain a 100,000-year soul ring? Possessy smiled and nodded. Everyone was shocked. This is a great thing. Who would have thought that the black rank test would have such a benefit? Tang Xin nodded in his heart. Master was right. Although the Sea God's Island was extremely dangerous, one could obtain unimaginable opportunities. These were all things that were difficult to obtain just by relying on cultivation alone. Child, your talent is very special. Possessy looked at Zhu Zhuqing gently. Your willpower is not inferior to mine at all. You can improve so much in just a month. I didn't have such improvement back then. Each of you has a chance to obtain a God-bestowed soul ring. Now, on behalf of the Sea God, I will bestow it to you. I hope you can obtain the soul ring you want. Zhu Zhuqing was stunned. She looked at the golden bead with a trace of determination in her eyes and nodded. End of chapter. Chapter 736. After that, Possessy waved her hand gently and threw the golden bead onto Zhu Zhuqing's head. In the next moment, the bead cracked. It turned into a golden mist and landed on Zhu Zhuqing's body. Then, it slowly changed into the shape of a soul ring. The color changed from white, yellow, purple, and black, slowly. A 90,000-year soul ring. Tang Xin looked at the final black color that was fixed at the end. There was even a trace of red mixed in. It was obviously a sign that it was almost 100,000 years, but it didn't become 100,000 years in the end. The amount of soul rings one can withstand is directly related to the strength of one's body. Zhu Qing's body is much stronger than that. Dai Mubai sighed. It's unbelievable. She's an agility type. Tang Xin nodded. Even if he reached rank 70, he wasn't confident that he could absorb a 100,000-year soul ring. But if he could, he had to rely on himself to absorb a 100,000-year soul ring. But at this moment, the 9 people didn't know that a warm current flowed out from Zhu Zhuqing's heart again. At this point, Zhu Zhuqing's body, which was originally unbearable, suddenly eased up. The soul ring suddenly became a 100,000-year soul ring. This scene caused everyone to be stunned. Even Possessy was stunned. 100,000-year soul ring? Possessy frowned and looked at Zhu Zhuqing. She clearly felt that Zhu Zhuqing's limit was 90,000-year soul ring, but it suddenly increased to 100,000-year soul ring. There seemed to be a special energy in her body that instantly repaired Zhu Zhuqing's body, which was already unable to withstand it, and raised it to a new level. This child indeed has a unique talent. Possessy smiled and looked at Zhu Zhuqing. At the same time, she looked at Ning Rongrong. Both of them could inherit her position as the High Priestess. However, in terms of innate talent, Zhu Zhuqing was definitely better than him. Under the light of the 100,000-year soul ring, Zhu Zhuqing exuded a peerless charm. Her skin seemed to be undergoing a baptism as a red light enveloped Zhu Zhuqing's body. Her martial soul, Dark Moon Fairy, gently jumped out. There were traces of red patterns all over her body, adding a touch of demonic beauty. What was different from before was that the Yue elves were originally cold and mysterious. But now it had a hint of life, aura. The golden eyes swept across everyone, inexplicably, gave them a special pressure. What a powerful martial soul. Possessy looked at it. It's obviously a dark element soul ring, but it has such a rich life aura of life. Everyone was shocked. Zhu Zhuqing's martial spirit was not like this a month ago. A martial soul ring's soul ring. This month was month soul ring a month. Everyone was martial soul ring heart of the soul was a soul was her heart. It was the energy that had flowed out of her heart over the past month that had changed her and her martial soul. In fact, it was the meteoric tear that changed her. The meteoric tear couldn't change Wang Feng's martial soul because it was too advanced. There was no room for change. Absorbing the soul ring was only equivalent to changing from the growth stage to the mature stage. But Zhu Zhuqing's martial soul had been constantly climbing the stairs and exceeding its limits for more than a month. The energy that flowed out had slightly changed Zhu Zhuqing's martial soul, making it stronger. This was also the reason why Zhu Zhuqing could barely catch up with Tang San when she climbed the stairs. It was also because of the meteoric tear that Zhu Zhuqing was able to obtain a 100,000-year soul ring. The meteoric tear was powerful. As long as its function was activated, the changes it brought were obvious. Wang Feng had relied on the meteoric tear in the early stages and had improved tremendously. Moreover, the sooner he obtained the meteoric tear, the better. Wang Feng had relied on the meteoric tear to transform his body, which was equivalent to laying an extremely stable foundation. Everyone waited quietly. After about 2 days, Zhu Zhuqing completely absorbed the 100,000-year soul ring. It was not an exaggeration to say that the changes brought by the 100,000-year soul ring were earth-shattering. The most obvious change was, she became more beautiful. Her original cold and ethereal temperament had become more gentle, which symbolized life. Her skin and facial features had undergone a huge change. Zhu Zhuqing, who was already very beautiful, could be said to be at a higher level. Even if she didn't smile, she was still fascinating. Ning Rongrong was jealous. Qing, I'm jealous of you. Ning Rongrong took a bite of the sweet fruit and found that no matter how sweet it was sour in her mouth at this moment. Shun Lingqi and Bai Chenxiang covered their mouths and snickered. They found that among the 3 girls in Shrek's 7 monsters, except for Xiao Wu who had not fully recovered yet, these 2 girls were also very close to each other. Especially Ning Rongrong, who was very honest and never hid a lot of things. But when they heard from Oscar and Ma Hongjun that when they first met Ning Rongrong, she was actually a very unruly and pretentious girl. She looked gentle and soft, but was actually a spoiled and unruly young lady. Now, that she had changed like this, to be exact, there was only one person who could make Ning Rongrong change like this. Okay, I know. Zhu Zhuqing nodded gently. Ning Rongrong hugged Zhu Zhuqing's arm a little coquettishly. Qing, what do you mean? Aren't you going to comfort me? You've become beautiful again. What should I do? Zhu Zhuqing wanted to say something, but didn't know what to say. She could only subconsciously touch her heart. What are you doing? Touching your chest. Are you saying that I'm not as old as you? Ning Rongrong snorted. Qing, you're too much. Zhu Zhuqing, that's not what I meant. Zhu Zhuqing suddenly looked at the sea and changed the topic. By the way, did you guys notice that the Golden Generation and their teachers haven't appeared for more than a month after they went into the sea that day? Everyone was stunned by her words. For the past month, they had been immersed in cultivation and climbing the stairs, so they didn't realize it. Now that they heard Zhu Zhuqing's words, they were abruptly awakened. Yes, they hadn't come out for more than a month. 1 month. Even if they're sea soul masters, they can't stay in the sea for a month, right? Ma Hongjun looked out at the calm sea. The deeper we go, the more sea soul beasts there are, and the pressure in the sea is just as strong. I think they have to use the Sea God's Lock for their test. When I was free, I heard from a few purple-robed soul masters who delivered food to us that the Sea God's Lock was used to trap the powerful sea soul beasts. Staying in the sea for a month, even their soul power couldn't withstand it. Maybe they've already died in the sea. Ning Rongrong's attention was successfully diverted. She looked at the sea and said, "The sea is much more dangerous than us. That white-robed Popetiff, it's better if he's eaten by those ferocious sea soul beasts in the deep sea." Zhu Zhuqing didn't say anything, but deep in her eyes, there was a trace of worry that she couldn't get rid of. For the past month, she was the only one who had been secretly observing the situation in the sea. But she still didn't see that figure floating to the surface. P.S. From now on, I'll make sure to update at least 7 times a day. 10 times a day is too tiring, and my eyes can't stand it. End of chapter. Chapter 737. Sea God's Mountain, Sea God's Hall. Possessy gazed at the calm sea. His red robe fluttered in the wind. The seahorse Douluo stood beside him. The sea god's lock hasn't been retracted. This means that they're still sinking. The seahorse Dalu was deep in thought. I've sent someone to take a look. The three of them have already sunk to a depth of 300 meters. It's a little exaggerated. Given their cultivations, it's very difficult for them to reach this depth in a month. As for Wang Wu, the people I've sent can't find out where he is. This means that he has sunk to a depth that even purple-clothed sea soul masters can't reach. He's at least 1,500 meters deep. The seahorse Douluo was in disbelief. The sea god's lock test was much more difficult than the sea god's light for land-based soul masters. He sunk to a depth of more than 2,000 meters. Possessy's eyes flashed. But there's a very serious problem. They're not sea soul masters. They can't cultivate in the sea. Even sea soul masters can't cultivate in the sea for long periods of time, let alone at such depths. Unless they're sea soul beasts. The seahorse Douluo was shocked. This was a very serious problem. Cultivating in the sea and cultivating in the sea were two different things. They can't be sea soul beasts. There's only one possibility. Possessy's eyes flashed with wisdom. They have some kind of divine item that allows them to cultivate in the sea. Only then can they cultivate quickly and reach such a level in a month. The person who has a divine item should be Wang Wu. Could this be the reason why the sea god chose him? At this moment, Possessy suddenly looked at the sky. The blue sky was now filled with dark clouds. The ring-shaped sea is no more than 6,000 meters deep. His test target is 5,500 meters deep. There are three sea soul beasts that are very difficult to deal with. To Wang Feng, his greatest gain in this month was not the increase in his soul power. It was the increase in his spiritual power. Wang Feng realized that under this kind of pressure, his mind power increased the fastest. This was because he had to face the pressure of the sea and the chains at all times in the sea. There was no chance for him to catch his breath. However, since you haven't reached your limit, you won't collapse right away. That's why your mental power is always in a tense state. Most importantly, this kind of dry cultivation was like a bottomless ocean. It was like an abyss, bringing immense mental pressure. The deeper he went, the more obvious the pressure became. In this state, Wang Feng's spiritual power cultivation increased rapidly. On the contrary, the increase in his soul power wasn't that great. 2 months later, Hulayina was the first to reach level 70. When he reached rank 70, Possessy sank into the sea and found Hulayina. He gave her a god-bestowed soul ring. Hulayina had obtained a 60,000-year soul ring, which was the limit of what she could bear. In the second month, the distance between the three of them had increased to more than 400 meters. It was sinking at a rate of several meters per day. Wang Feng was already close to 3,000 meters. The reason why he was sinking so fast was because he had not reached his limit. At a distance of 3,000 meters, Wang Feng used his soul power and removed his mysterious underworld armor. At the same time, he used his martial soul to strengthen himself and resist the pressure of the seawater as he pulled the three sea gods' locks that weighed several thousand kilograms each. This kind of strengthening consumed a lot of soul power. This was because whether it was the deification, thorn lotus, or soul-devouring blood wings, they could only last for an hour. An hour later, Wang Feng had to reapply them on himself. At 3,500 meters, his soul bone gradually revealed itself and helped Wang Feng bear the pressure and strengthen him. At the 4,000 M mark, Wang Feng gradually activated the power of the blood mark. This was also the third month. Wang Feng reached a depth of 4,000 meters, and his soul power finally reached rank 69. At this time, Yin and Evil Moon both broke through rank 70 and obtained God-bestowed soul rings. Evil Moon obtained a 60,000-year soul ring, while Yin obtained a 70,000-year soul ring. They had both exceeded their limit. A normal 7th soul ring could only withstand 50,000-year soul rings. Hulayina's rank also increased by 2 ranks. On average, she increased by 1 rank every month and reached rank 73. After level 70, this was also a very frightening cultivation speed. At the same time, the three of them had sunk more than 500 meters. 3 months of results could be said to be above the limit. And in these 3 months, Tang San and the others above also had major breakthroughs. Among them, Tang San had the biggest change, because in the 3rd month, or to be precise, not long after the beginning of the 3rd month, he had already reached rank 70 and then absorbed a God-bestowed soul ring. Tang San absorbing the God-bestowed soul ring was much more dangerous than Zhu Zhuqing. Zhu Zhuqing had the protection of the meteoric tear, which reduced the impact of the 100,000-year soul ring to a minimum. She successfully absorbed it in 2 days, but in the following month, she still continued to absorb the power of this God-bestowed soul ring. Tang San, on the other hand, braved the danger and spent close to 2 months before he finished absorbing the 100,000-year soul ring that was a God-bestowed soul ring. Because it was a complete absorption, it took a long time, much longer than Zhu Zhuqing. But in fact, the pain was the same. And in comparison, Zhu Zhuqing's body was not as strong as Tang San's, so the pain she suffered from absorbing the 100,000-year soul ring was much greater. It was only the meteoric tear that could help her recover. In the 4th month, Wang Feng had sunk to a depth of 5,000 meters. Ring-shaped sea area, deep sea, 5,000 meters. Wang Feng couldn't describe the scene at a depth of 5,000 meters, because it was black, incomparably dark. He couldn't see anything. Light could no longer illuminate this place. In fact, there was no light at a depth of 1,000 meters. Above 1,000 meters, the Sea God Mountains still had brown light and the light of the chains, which allowed Hulaina and the other two to see the situation around them clearly. But at a depth of 5,000 meters, it was black. Wang Feng could only rely on his strong spiritual power to sense the position of the Sea God Mountain and calculate the distance in his heart. Sinking at such a depth, Wang Feng felt that the pressure on his mind might be greater than his body. In the endless darkness and the extremely unfamiliar bottom of the sea, he couldn't see anything. He still had to pull 3 chains to sink, and his body had to bear the terrifying pressure of the sea at all times. His mind was in a state of high tension, and it was very likely that his mind would collapse in the next second. When a person's mind collapsed, they would also disintegrate. Even if they could still resist the pressure of the sea and the chains, they would not be far from death. Plus more than 4 months of enduring such an environment, it was too abnormal. Even with Wang Feng's spiritual power, he felt a little dizzy. End of this chapter. Chapter 738. In fact, Wang Feng felt that he had reached his limit when he was 4,500 meters down. He had used all sorts of enhancements, including 400,000-year soul bones, the power of the blood pattern, and his dark angel martial soul. Only then did he manage to reach 5,000 meters. Wang Feng had to surpass his limit for the remaining 500 meters. At this point, he realized that the weight of the chains seemed to have increased by many times. With his spiritual power tensed up, it was as if all his actions and senses were magnified by more than 10 times. Wang Feng had no doubt that even rank 95 and 96 titled Douluo would be crushed to death at this position. Over these 4 months, Wang Feng had also improved. To be precise, he had improved even more than Hulaina and the rest. However, because he was too strong, these improvements were not significant to him. Only his spiritual power had improved tremendously over the past 4 months. It had already turned into a torrential river, taking the shape of a lake. At this moment, Wang Feng was quietly floating 5,000 meters under the sea. His body was shining with intense light. This was his complete form, just like when he fought the demon whale. If he did not maintain this form, Wang Feng would not be able to survive in such a place. He could only retreat. Under the pressure of the sea, Wang Feng's spiritual power could not extend too far. Wang Feng was silent as he pulled the 3 chains. These 500 meters, Wang Feng was much stronger than when he had first entered the sea. Whether it was his spiritual power or his physical body, they were both stronger. However, it was more difficult than ascending to the heavens to reach these 500 meters in less than a month. This was Wang Feng's limit. His soul power rank was nearing rank 70. Over the past 4 months, Hulaina and the rest had increased by at least 5 ranks. However, he had only managed to increase by 1 rank. However, this was still very fast. Otherwise, Wang Feng would only be able to increase by 1 rank after half a year. If I use the blue flag, I can descend another 500 meters without expending too much energy. However, this is meaningless. Wang Feng pondered. These last 500 meters were an opportunity for him to improve. At the very least, he had to reach rank 70. His body had to be strengthened. Otherwise, even with his cultivation speed, he would not be able to reach rank 70 in a year. Once he reached rank 70, he would be able to obtain a soul ring. He could use it to reach the 1001st step. After settling his thoughts, Wang Feng continued to ponder. Every time his will approached the 0 boundary point, Wang Feng would think of the goal he had worked so hard for. He also had a goal that he could work towards. Let's not talk about the distance. If he died just like that, 3 years later, it would be hard to say whether Tang San and the others were dead or alive. He did not know what would happen to Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing. No one knew what would happen to the martial spirit palace. Wang Feng wanted to reverse the ending he knew. In this Douluo world, Wang Feng also changed many of the regrets he had when he first read the original work. This was what Wang Feng had always wanted to do. This was the reason why she wanted to destroy Bibidon's deity position. If Bibidon did not have the deity position, then her ambition would no longer exist. Whether it was the 3 major sects or Tang San, they would all change. Many people would not die. Of course, the most important thing was still himself. Wang Feng would always remember this, Wang Feng's faith, and will remain in his heart as he continued to compose himself. At a position of 5,000 meters, even 1 more meter of pressure would be infinitely magnified. Every time he reached the limit, Wang Feng would use the blue flag to reduce the pressure on the spot and cultivate to recover. Then he continued to sink slowly. In this process, every few meters, Wang Feng's body would make a sound like bones breaking. His skin began to overflow with blood, his eyes were bloodshot, and his whole body seemed to be undergoing drastic changes. Layer after layer of blood scabs solidified from Wang Feng's body and shattered under the pressure of the seawater. Endless destruction, rebirth. The power of the meteoric tear poured out of his heart continuously. Wang Feng used his spiritual power to control this energy, containing majestic vitality, and washed all over his body. This kind of pain had exceeded the limit that a soul master could bear. It was not the kind of pain that made you die instantly, but as you sank, you slowly felt that you were about to die, and the pain would increase every second. Every time Wang Feng felt that he was infinitely close to death, he would use the blue flag instinctively to let his body recover quickly. Every moment, it was as if he was walking on the tip of the knife of death. Fortunately, there was the meteoric tear and the blue flag. This gave Wang Feng a chance to breathe. For every meter he sank, Wang Feng would rest for at least 1 to 2 hours. This kind of torture could easily destroy a person's willpower. Finally, after more than 20 days, Wang Feng reached a position of 5,500 meters. At this moment, his body was emitting a layer of faint light, and his skin seemed to have undergone another layer of baptism. With his eyes closed, he seemed to have entered a state of selflessness. He was relying solely on his life's instinct to pull the 3 chains to reach his destination. But his aura was also very weak, and at the moment when he reached his destination, 3 different roars penetrated the boundless seawater and woke Wang Feng up. In these 20 days, Wang Feng's willpower was fighting with himself, and his body's strength was fighting with the pressure of the seawater and the weight of the chains. In his sea of consciousness, Wang Feng's spiritual power had reached a terrifying level. Big river. It was flowing with silver light, and it was extremely bright. A green lotus in the middle of the big river was emitting faint light. Wang Feng, who was awakened, seemed to have awakened from his chaotic state, and all his memories were instantly recalled and surged into his brain. It's the sea spirit beast from the bottom of the sea. Wang Fengxian was shocked and immediately understood his situation. The trident between his eyebrows flashed with a faint light, and at the same time, he had completed 1/3 of the 3 parts of the first test. But there was no reminder because he had not completed the first test. This aura, it should be at least 80,000 years of strength. Wang Feng took a deep breath and looked at the blood-red holes in front of him. Obviously, those were the eyes of the 3 sea spirit beasts. Wang Feng did not hesitate. Before he could feel the changes in his body, he immediately used the blue flag to remove the pressure of the seawater. At the same time, he unlocked the sea god's lock, and the boundless pressure was instantly removed. The pressure of the past 5 months was suddenly reduced by half, and Wang Feng wanted to roar to the sky. Wang Feng quietly looked at the 3 sea spirit beasts in front of him. At this moment, the dull sound of the seawater stirring could be heard. In this kind of seawater, only the sea spirit beasts could cause the seawater to stir. Suddenly, the dark bottom of the sea lit up with spots of light. This light was not emitted by Wang Feng, but by the 3 sea spirit beasts. The first to appear in front of Wang Feng was a blood flood dragon that was more than 40 meters long. Its shape was similar to the blue lightning tyrant dragon, and it contained an extremely dense, murderous aura. On the dragon's body, there was a sea god's lock that was as thick as an ancient tree. End of chapter. Chapter 739. The second beast that appeared in front of Wang Feng was a ferocious crocodile that looked similar to Odontosuchus. Odontosuchus was a wind-wing snowstorm crocodile. He had wings and was covered in icicle-like armor. This ferocious crocodile also had a pair of wings and was covered in aquamarine armor that looked like gemstones. Its eyes were ferocious. The third one was a whale shark that was completely blue in color. It was also the beast with the strongest aura. Wang Feng estimated that it had at least 90,000 years of cultivation. The whale shark was a type of shark. However, it was as huge as a whale and was almost 80 meters long. At this moment, Wang Feng finally encountered 3 aquatic soul beasts when he was 5,000 meters deep into the sea. These 3 aquatic soul beasts were all bound by a sea god's lock. Unlike Wang Feng's lock, which could be unlocked, the sea god's lock would pierce into their bodies directly. It was impossible to unlock them, because they had been in the bodies of these 3 aquatic soul beasts for a long time. The sea god's lock might have grown together with their flesh. Wang Feng did not expect to encounter these 3 aquatic soul beasts so soon. In the sea, these 3 aquatic soul beasts are not ordinary. Even ordinary 80,000-year aquatic soul beasts can't be defeated by those 100,000-year aquatic soul beasts on land. Wang Feng did not doubt this. Just like how the soul Douluo on the sea god's island could defeat a tidal Douluo on the sea god's island. They had to face the immense pressure of the sea. But now, these 3 aquatic soul beasts were one of Wang Feng's tests. He had to tame these 3 aquatic soul beasts and break the 3 chains at the same time. If it were other soul masters who had just reached 5,500 meters, they would be exhausted. They would not even be able to escape, let alone tame these 3 aquatic soul beasts. Just like what the 2 purple-robed soul masters said, it was impossible. But for me, it's not impossible. Wang Feng looked at the 3 aquatic soul beasts with strong auras. At this moment, the 3 aquatic soul beasts charged towards Wang Feng. They had already smelled the tempting aura on Wang Feng's body. But why did they only appear now? It was very simple because they knew that Wang Feng, who had just reached this position, was in his weakest state. These 3 sea spirit beasts had lived for many years and were extremely intelligent. For a soul master to be able to pull 3 sea gods' locks and descend to such a terrifying depth, how strong was he? He must be terrifyingly strong. Wang Feng's aura had reached its peak when he released the power of the blood mark and the dark angel martial soul from over 4,000 meters away. At that time, The three sea spirit beasts had already planned for this moment. This human was undergoing a test. As long as he reached the limit of the test and was at his weakest, then he would attack. At the same time, the deeper they sank, the more advantageous it would be for them. The Blood Jiao Sea Soul Beast was the first to charge towards Wang Feng. The Blood Jiao Sea Soul Beast was extremely fast in the deep sea. In just a few blinks of an eye, it was already close to Wang Feng. Wang Feng was still inside the bubble formed by the blue flag. If it was removed, Wang Feng would have to face the pressure of the sea. Therefore, he naturally wouldn't do that. At the moment when the Blood Jiao Sea Soul Beast attacked, Wang Feng spun the blue flag in his hand and channeled his remaining soul power and spiritual power to the extreme. It was as if a hole had been opened under the sea. The bubble suddenly expanded and enveloped the Blood Jiao Sea Soul Beast. Countless amounts of seawater disappeared around the Blood Jiao Sea Soul Beast, causing the Blood Jiao Sea Soul Beast body to be extremely strange. It was as if it had suddenly disappeared from the ground into a vacuum. The Blood Jiao Sea Soul Beast body was slow for a few seconds. Wang Feng took this opportunity to dodge the Blood Jiao Sea Soul Beast attack. The Blood Jiao Sea Soul Beast body was covered with densely packed thorns. Its attack power was extremely strong. Once he was entangled by the thorns, he would not be in a good state given his current state. Without seawater, the Blood Jiao Sea Soul Beast was extremely uncomfortable and its strength was greatly reduced. It had no advantage in the sea. However, its strength was still there. At the same time, the other two sea spirit beasts also noticed that something was wrong. They did not charge towards Wang Feng immediately. Instead, they roared a few times. At this moment, the whale shark suddenly opened its bloody mouth. A ray of light condensed in its mouth. However, it did not spit out. Instead, it produced a terrifying suction force. Boundless seawater surged into the whale shark's mouth. Naturally, it included Wang Feng. The seawater carried Wang Feng and surged into the whale shark's mouth at an extremely fast speed. Even a tidal Douluo would not be able to resist such a terrifying suction force in the sea. Wang Feng furrowed his brows and kicked forward. The star cannon in his leg bone combined with the star core to form an intense ray of light. Instantly, it was blasted into the whale shark's mouth. However, the star cannon became much dimmer under the pressure of the seawater. Although it was strengthened by the star core, its strength was much weaker. This was the reason why soul masters on land were weakened in the sea. If they were on land, this attack would be enough to severely injure the whale shark. Right now, the star cannon was blasted into the whale shark's mouth. It only caused the whale shark's lower abdomen to light up. It was as if there was an explosion inside. This whale shark should have been injured as well. However, the injury was not serious. Perhaps to this whale shark, it was equivalent to an ordinary person eating a devil chili. Although it was very uncomfortable, it was not fatal. The suction force in the whale shark's mouth did not decrease. Instead, it became stronger. It was obvious that it was even more furious. At the same time, Wang Feng's torso suddenly lit up. His soul seal's soul skill turned into an ice-colored ray of light that struck the whale shark's body. However, before it struck the whale shark, the blood-colored flood dragon spat out a ball of blood. This ball of blood exploded in front of the whale shark and formed a blood-colored water wall. When the ice-colored ray of light landed on the water wall, it was instantly frozen into an ice wall. The attack did not reach the whale shark. At the same time, the sea crocodile that looked like Odontosuchus crashed into the ice wall and destroyed it. It directly broke Wang Feng's soul seal's soul skill. The three aquatic soul beasts were very experienced. They did not have much chemistry with one another. However, as their target was Wang Feng, they naturally had to work together. Cunning and treacherous. Wang Feng furrowed his brows slightly after his soul skill was broken. He did not have a place to exert his strength in the sea. He could not unleash the strength that he had on land. Furthermore, he was indeed very weak now. He originally wanted to use his soul seal's soul skill to freeze the three soul beasts. Then, He would use his siphon to absorb the soul power of the three soul beasts to quickly replenish himself. He did not expect these three soul beasts to be so experienced. They did not even give him a chance to attack them. As he got closer to the whale shark's mouth, Wang Feng's eyes turned cold. The shimmering flying sword was in the 5,000 meters of sea. The resistance was too great. Its attack power and speed would be greatly reduced. Even if Wang Feng's spiritual power had reached a very powerful level, it was still very easy to dodge in the sea. Furthermore, he could not use the 7 lethal sword technique. He could not use the original Sin domain to affect these 3 aquatic soul beasts. It had to be said that the timing of these 3 beasts was really good. End of this chapter. Chapter 740. He could not even use the Pangu axe now. His status was also in a state of disappearing. The universal divine light would not be affected by the 3 aquatic spirit beasts' cunning. The main reason was that his attacks would be greatly weakened in the sea. He might not even be able to hit the 3 aquatic spirit beasts. At the same time, he had to use the blue flag to give himself some space to move and reduce the pressure of the sea. Otherwise, the situation would be even more dangerous. The 3 aquatic spirit beasts roared as they watched Wang Feng being slowly sucked into the sea. They were proud of themselves. Wang Feng was silent for a moment. He then exhaled and said slowly, "Let's try the 6th soul skill then." After he finished speaking, Wang Feng turned his palm. Except for the blue flag, the other 4 flags suddenly appeared in his hand. 5 small flags of different shapes appeared in the center of Wang Feng's hand and slowly revolved around it. This was the true and complete form of the innate 5-element flags. When Wang Feng reached rank 69, the last yellow flag, which was the central Wuji apricot yellow flag, finally appeared. "Out!" Wang Feng shouted. The 5 small flags suddenly became bigger and emitted 5 different lights in different directions. Finally, they gathered into a milky white light and slowly spread out in all directions. The range expanded rapidly. Under this light, all the seawater disappeared. The boundless light instantly shrouded the 3 aquatic spirit beasts. Strands of milky white light merged into the 3 aquatic spirit beast bodies. It seemed to have a special binding effect. Suddenly, the 3 aquatic spirit beasts were stunned. The light in the whale shark's mouth slowly disappeared, and the terrifying suction force stopped. Without the seawater, the 3 aquatic spirit beasts who lived in the sea all year round were confused. They did not understand what was going on, but soon they realized what was going on. Domain. This was the power of a domain, and it was not an ordinary domain. Instantly, they were isolated from the sea. The 3 aquatic spirit beasts were furious. Without the seawater, their speed would be greatly reduced, and they would be extremely inflexible. But then, a terrifying consciousness came from all directions and attacked the 3 aquatic spirit beast minds. Almost instantly, the 3 aquatic spirit beasts' blood-red eyes were in a daze. At the same time, 2 different huge pillars of light, one black and one white, were moving around in the white light like shooting stars. Whenever these light beams brushed past the 3 sea spirit beasts, a huge gash would appear on their bodies, and even their bones would be exposed. These light beams were very similar to the 2 attack light beams launched by the 5-headed star dragon. Innate 5 directions domain. Wang Feng's eyes sparkled. That was right. His 6th soul skill was a domain-type soul skill. Usually, titled battle pet warriors would only use their 9th soul skill. But Wang Feng relied on his 100,000-year soul ring and the special innate 5-element flags to form a powerful soul skill. Innate 5 directions domain. Isolates everything, controls the 5 directions. The domain is sure to hit the spiritual illusion. Moreover, within the domain, the opponent would not be able to release any domain unless their strength far surpassed Wang Feng's. At the same time, it also had a powerful recovery ability, rendering all attacks ineffective against Wang Feng. It also contained 2 special black and white light cannons, which would appear in various parts of Wang Feng's domain with a thought. In addition to fusing the abilities of the 5 flags, there were also 2 additional attacks. It was an extremely powerful attack. The most terrifying effect was that all attacks would be ineffective against Wang Feng, as if he was in a golden state. This was the ability of the Wuji apricot yellow flag, which could make him invincible for 5 seconds. This invincibility was much stronger than the Black Lotus area of effect defense. It could be used about 5 times a day. The yellow flag could be said to be invincible, 25 seconds. However, the innate 5 directions domain was not unrestricted, and Wang Feng was invincible. However, the consumption of the innate 5 directions domain was terrifying. The original Sin's domain consumed spiritual power and could be maintained for a long time. However, the innate 5 directions domain consumed pure soul power. With Wang Feng's rank 70 soul power, he could only maintain it for 30 seconds. It was different from the Pangu axe. As long as Wang Feng did not swing it, he could hold it in his hand for a long time. However, he could also use up all of his strength in a few seconds. Although this domain was strong, it consumed a lot of soul power. However, it was enough for now. Wang Feng revealed a trace of a smile. The effect of this 6 soul skill was completely revealed after 9 ranks. It was worthy of being 100,000-year soul ring and worthy of being called the innate 5 element flags. Although it was a set, it was essentially 5 different magic treasures. With this domain, it was not just these aquatic soul beasts. Even on the Sea God's Island, the title Douluo would not be able to gain an advantage over Wang Feng. Anyone who wanted to take advantage of the terrain would not be able to do so. The black and white light pillars in the domain only lasted for 6 to 7 seconds, and the 3 aquatic soul beasts who had lost their seawater were covered in wounds. Blood was flowing. Wang Feng could not last for 30 seconds, and the domain disappeared after 6 to 7 seconds. There was not much soul power left in his body. Wang Feng did not use the blue flag this time, but the white cloud boundary flag. The white cloud boundary flag absorbed the blood of the 3 aquatic soul beasts. When the white cloud boundary flag absorbed the blood of the 3 aquatic soul beasts, Wang Feng's spirit had an additional connection with the 3 aquatic soul beasts. After that, Wang Feng used the blue flag to form a water bubble. He sat cross-legged in the water and quickly recovered his body. After the domain disappeared, the 3 aquatic soul beasts became silent. The 3 soul-returning beasts were trapped by the sea god's lock and could not enter the white cloud boundary flag for now. However, with this connection, the 3 aquatic soul beasts could not move. In addition to the injuries on their bodies, they did not dare to attack Wang Feng. In the domain, the 3 aquatic soul beasts were not only attacked, but their spirits were also crazily attacked. Now they were in a daze. This domain also contained part of the Starlight 5-headed dragon's domain ability, and it had a strong spiritual attack effect. It was also the only spiritual attack that Wang Feng could use now. With his immense spiritual power, if he did not show mercy earlier, he could have crushed the spirits of these 3 aquatic soul beasts into pieces. Next, Wang Feng only needed to tame these 3 aquatic soul beasts, and it would be much easier. Wang Feng was very experienced in taming soul beasts, not to mention other things. Especially the white cloud boundary flag. It was the best tool to use to tame soul beasts. Because in the white cloud boundary flag, Wang Feng could launch a spiritual attack at any time, and the soul beast would suffer a fate worse than death. Are you convinced? The 3 of you? Wang Feng transmitted his thoughts into the minds of the 3 soul beasts. The 3 aquatic soul beasts were very quiet, and they barely regained their consciousness. They had been imprisoned in the Central Sea region for too many years. Taming them was more difficult than killing them. End of chapter. Chapter 741. Not convinced. The sea crocodile was the first to answer. If you can unlock the sea god's lock, I will be convinced. The whale shark replied. The sea god's lock can only be unlocked with the approval of the sea god. Same here. The blood dragon replied. Wang Feng smiled. He was not familiar with the soul beasts in the sea, so he did not know the names of these three soul beasts. He could only guess their species. Wang Feng was not familiar with their exact age, but compared to Odonisuchus, Shun Bing, and Cowardly Kuan, they were definitely weaker. Cowardly Kuan, the Dark North Emperor Kuan, was a species that few could compare to in the entire continent. Wang Feng did not have much time to waste on them, so he could only tame them in a very short time. Other than the sea crocodile, the other two soul beasts seemed to be very sensible. As for unlocking the sea god's lock, Wang Feng smiled. Wang Feng had experienced the toughness of the sea god's lock in the past 4 months. These chains were extremely sturdy and had been constructed from an extremely special material. Even the sword Dalu wouldn't be able to sever them in the seawater. But for Wang Feng, it was a very simple matter. Because Wang Feng had the cauldron of universe and the divine light of universe, he could easily break this sea god's lock without using the Pango axe. As for the sea god's lock, it contained a little bit of the sea god's power, so he could just absorb it. Previously at the Holy Pillar, after the Dark Angel absorbed part of the sea god's power, it was greatly strengthened, and even the original Sin's domain changed slightly. Otherwise, he would not have reached 5,500 meters. But after absorbing too much, Wang Feng felt that the Dark Angel was a little bloated. Recently, he had been digesting it, but it should not be a problem to absorb more. After about 2 days of recovery, Wang Feng could finally feel his own strength. Removing the blue flag, and in addition to his status, Wang Feng allowed the huge sea pressure to press on his body. Wang Feng closed his eyes, but his body could completely withstand the current sea pressure. His current physique was more than twice as strong as before. With Wang Feng's previous physique, it was unimaginable to double. Now, Wang Feng was not too sure how strong his body was. However, the water pressure of more than 5,500 meters could no longer cause any harm to Wang Feng. After that, Wang Feng used his divine light of universe to lower the quality of the sea god's lock. Then, he used his icebound siphon to absorb the special energy from the lock and infuse it into his dark angel martial soul. After that, he used the Netherism flying sword to directly slash the sea god's lock into two. The 3 aquatic soul beasts were dumbfounded. This thing had bound them for so many years, and they could not break free no matter how hard they tried. In addition, they had never been tamed, so the chains were like maggots in their bones, remaining in their bodies. Now that it had been severed and pulled out, that sour feeling. After Wang Feng had severed the sea god's lock, he had taken the sea crocodile into the white cloud-bound flag and crazily educated it. In just 2 days, he couldn't take it anymore and refused to admit defeat. At this point, the second part of the first test was finally completed. It's time to go up. Wang Feng looked at the dark surface of the sea and revealed a faint smile. Although the first test hadn't been completed yet, there was no reward. But to Wang Feng, the rewards were huge. The increase in his spiritual power, the increase of 2 ranks in 5 months, the increase in his physical strength, and the new 6th soul skill on the coast. 5 months. To Tang San and the rest, the improvement was also huge. After Tang San, Dai Mubai had also reached rank 70. The rest of them had increased by more than 3 ranks, reaching rank 67 or 68. And Shan Lingqi, who was originally at rank 54, had increased by 4 ranks. Before Bai Qinxiang came, she was at rank 49, and in these 5 months, she had already reached rank 50. But in order to absorb more of the God-given soul rings, Bai Qinxiang had been training her body on the steps of the sea god's light. She was not in a hurry to break through. Although everyone's soul power was on the steps of the sea god's light, and their cultivation was very fast, but their progress was average. The strongest, Tang San, was barely at rank 110 after absorbing a 100,000-year soul ring. He was still very far away from reaching the halfway mark, and Tang San felt that after rank 100, every rank was more difficult. With his strength, it was extremely difficult. The progress of the other 6 was around rank 140 and rank 160. How difficult was it? As for the rest of the people, apart from Zhu Zhuqing, even Dai Mubai was only 83 steps away. Zhu Zhuqing was the only one who could keep up with Tang San's progress. She was only 5 to 6 steps away from Tang San. Possessi was very puzzled by this situation, because Zhu Zhuqing's progress proved that her potential should be even higher, and not just the 160th level. Unless the sea god's estimation was wrong, but the sea god definitely wouldn't be wrong. After Tang San finished absorbing the 100,000-year soul ring and reached the 110th step, he stopped, then retreated to the steps of the rest of his friends, and then retreated to the level where everyone was cultivating. It's already been 5 months. Our first test duration is 1 year, but we're still far away from reaching the halfway mark. Tang San's tone changed slightly. Although we've improved a lot, after rank 100, I feel that every step is more difficult. After a day, we might not be able to break through the limit of 1 step. The further we go, the harder it is. Zhu Qing must have a deep understanding of this. Everyone was silent. Zhu Zhuqing nodded lightly and said, "It's indeed very difficult. After rank 100 is another level of difficulty. It's very difficult to reach rank 140. Maybe we really have to use the method that Xiaoxie mentioned when we reach the end." Dai Mubai muttered, "Only by gathering the strength of the 7 of us can we pass the final test." Everyone nodded in agreement. Tang San frowned slightly. He vaguely felt that there was actually an opportunity that allowed everyone to reach the corresponding level with their own ability. But where exactly was this opportunity? Tang San felt that he seemed to have grasped something. That's right. It seems that nothing happened to those 4 people. At this time, Shan Lingqi suddenly said, "2 months ago, I saw Senior Possessi go into the sea. I think he must have given them soul rings." This means that not only have they been sinking in the sea, but they have also been cultivating to become stronger and then broke through. A month ago, Senior Possessi went into the sea twice. He must have given 2 people soul rings. Everyone nodded slightly. They had also seen it. Possessi went into the sea 3 times, which means that the 3 of them have broken through rank 70. Shenlingqi said calmly, "Their soul rank is about the same as Third Brother and Big Brother Ma, but in these 5 months, their improvement is greater than ours. This is very strange. They haven't gone out to sea yet." They were the only ones who felt this strange feeling. Even the purple-clothed soul master who brought them food felt extremely strange, because this was illogical. They only went into the sea 3 times. But there are 4 of them. Ning Rongrong frowned and said, "There should be one who hasn't broken through." But at this time, on the mountain peak in the distance, a figure gradually floated down and quietly floated on the sea. It wasn't far from them. It was Possessi. Everyone was shocked when they saw this. But this time, Possessi didn't go into the sea. Just as everyone was puzzled, the calm sea in the distance suddenly surged with monstrous waves and countless whirlpools, as if a huge monster was about to appear. P.S. There are still a few chapters left. Please count. End of chapter. Chapter 742. The seawater under the sea god mountain would sometimes have waves, and many soul beasts in the sea would jump out from time to time, causing waves of splashes. Sometimes, when they were tired, they could enjoy such beautiful scenery to relieve their stress. But now it was a little strange. The monstrous waves were dozens of meters high, and the huge whirlpool was 50 to 60 meters high, although it was much smaller than the demon whale that day. But in this ring-shaped sea area, no one had ever seen such a terrifying scene. Could it be that some powerful sea soul beast is about to appear? Ma Hongjun clicked his tongue. In more than 5 months, this is the first time I've seen such a big disturbance in this sea area. Looking at the situation, it's not just one sea soul beast. Under the whirlpool, there were 3 indistinct black figures. I heard from the purple-clothed sea soul master that there are many powerful and unruly sea soul beasts suppressed under the sea god mountain. Oscar thought and said, "Could it be that they want to attack the sea god mountain? These sea soul beasts shouldn't be so stupid. Senior Possessi is still here. Or maybe they want to come out for some fresh air." Oscar's words made everyone laugh. I feel that it makes sense. Dai couldn't help but laugh. These sea soul beasts are suppressed under the mountain all year round. Yeah, right? Do you think it has something to do with that Pope King Wu? Everyone was stunned. Ning Rongrong giggled. I think that Pope King Wu was eaten by them to thank Senior Possessee. Ha ha ha. Although Ning Rongrong's thought circuit was strange, it still amused everyone. But at this moment, the commotion in the sea became even bigger. Rumble. First, a terrifyingly huge sea crocodile floated out of the water, emitting a ferocious aura. An 80,000-year windowing blackwater crocodile. Tang San's eyes focused, and his tone was slightly heavy. An 80,000-year windowing blackwater crocodile. With its strength in the sea, even a 10,000-year-old beast on land would find it difficult to deal with. It has two attributes, wind and water, but it's mainly water. There are soul beasts similar to it called the windowing snowstorm crocodile. It was similar to the bloodline of a relative, but it was much stronger. The main reason was that the blizzard crocodile was covered in a special ice crystal armor, and its defensive power was extremely astonishing. As for the blackwater crocodile, it only has the ability to control water. Tang San was the famous encyclopedia of soul beasts among the 7 of them. Although he didn't know much about the soul beasts in the sea, he had done a lot of research on the soul beasts in the sea. Before he went out to sea, he had specifically instructed Tang San to look for some of the stronger sea spirit beasts. One of them was the windwing blackwater crocodile. At this moment, as soon as Tang San finished speaking, a blood-colored sea serpent that was nearly 50 meters long also came out of the sea. His thick and long body stirred up ring-like waves on the surface of the sea, splashing up tens of meters high, stirring up the waves in the sea. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it could overturn rivers and seas. Blood coral sea dragon. Tang San's gaze focused again. I didn't expect such a powerful beast to be suppressed under the sea god mountain. Tang San's gaze landed on the blood coral sea dragon, and his gaze seemed to follow the other party's movements. This sea spirit beast gives off an extremely ferocious feeling. Dai Mubai frowned slightly. Little San, is this soul master very strong? Actually, there was no need to ask. The others could also feel its strength. It was even stronger than the blackwater crocodile. It definitely had a cultivation of more than 80,000 years. Very strong. Tang San nodded. Look at this blood coral sea dragon's head. Don't you see some coral-like hills? This is a sign that it's about to grow horns. Teacher said that once this kind of sea spirit beast grows horns, it will step into the 100,000-year level. This blood coral sea dragon is already more than 90,000 years old. Just like the 200,000-year-old beasts we met in the Great Stardow Forest, they couldn't beat this blood coral sea dragon in the sea. As Tang San spoke, he pointed at the blood coral sea dragon's head. There were indeed 2 bulging bulges. Is it so strong? Zhu Zhuqing's voice trembled slightly. Tang San nodded and said, it's like this in the sea. The strength of the soul beasts on land will be greatly reduced when they enter the sea. It's the same for us sea spirit masters. Perhaps only the 7 saint pillars of the sea god's island can deal with a sea spirit beast of this level. Hearing this, Zhu Zhuqing couldn't help but feel nervous. There are only 2 of them. What about the other one in the center of the whirlpool? Ma Hongjun stuck his head out and looked at the whirlpool in the center of the waves. It can create such a big commotion. Could it be 100,000-year soul beast? Just as Ma Hongjun finished speaking, in the next moment, a giant shark more than 80 meters long appeared on the surface of the sea. Its size was the same as an ordinary whale. It was more than half the size of the demon whale that everyone saw that day. However, this was a real shark. It could be seen from its sharp teeth that were much longer than a normal person's. Is this a shark-type soul beast? How can it be so big? Ning Rongrong opened her mouth. Those demon soul great white demon sharks. The longest one is only 20 meters, and at 100,000-year soul beast, they had encountered a demon soul great white demon shark before. At that time, They relied on Tang San's vast sea cosmic shroud to safely leave the group of demon soul great white demon sharks. But that was a normal shark. This is not a normal shark. Tang San shook his head and said, "This is one of the overlords of the sea, the whale shark. This one should be a 10,000 demon whale shark. This kind of soul beast is not inferior to a 100,000-year soul beast, like the demon soul great white demon shark. Also, looking at its size, it should only be around 90,000 years old. If it's a 100-meter long 10,000 demon whale shark, it should be a 100,000-year soul beast. This should be the strongest of the three. I think the strongest of the 7 Saint Pillars, the Sea Dragon Saint Pillar, should be able to suppress this soul beast." Tang San's explanation made everyone understand the origin of these 3 soul beasts. In fact, they could feel the strength of these 3 soul beasts just by their aura. But the 3 of them were not worried. Possessi was in the air in front of them. After the 10,000 demon whale shark floated to the surface of the sea, the 3 soul beasts roared at the same time. At this moment, a surprised voice suddenly sounded from Tang San's mouth. "Hey, there seems to be a person standing on the 10,000 demon whale shark." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Immediately, they hurriedly looked over and saw a figure in black, fluttering clothes. At this moment, he was standing in front of the most powerful 10,000 demon whale shark with his hands behind his back. They took a look. Suddenly, they were all stunned, because this figure was not someone else. It was Wang Wu, who went into the sea 5 months ago and never came up again. The white-clothed Popetiff from the Martial Spirit Palace. In an instant, the 9 people were dumbfounded. Being able to stand on such a ferocious sea soul beast was enough to explain everything. Then, the content of this Wang Wu's first test appeared in everyone's mind. Only now did they remember. Immediately, the 9 of them sucked in a breath of cold air. End of this chapter. Chapter 743. Could it be that Wang Wu used these 5 months to not only sink 5,000 meters, but also tamed 3 aquatic spirit beasts, and these 3 aquatic spirit beasts are above 80,000 years old? Ma Hongjun murmured, "This is too scary, isn't it? Is this something a human can do? He must have cheated, right? 5 months." Ma Hongjun's nagging caused the others to fall silent. 5 months of doubt and rejoicing. In this instant, all turned into incomparable shock. How is this possible? Shouldn't he have been eaten? Ning Rongrong murmured. "Ah, this bastard. How can he be so powerful? Zhu Qing, tell me, how can he be so strong? He must have cheated." Zhu Qing. She turned her head, and a trace of unknown joy appeared on her face. She turned her head and nodded her head. "Yes, he must have cheated." "What do you mean by must have?" Senior Possessi must have seen through him. However, Possessi floated in the air and slowly landed on the back of the 10,000 demon whale shark. This made the 10,000 demon whale shark even more obedient and motionless. If they were in the deep sea, he would not be afraid of this high priest. In the deep sea, this high priest of the sea god's island could kill the 10,000 demon whale shark, but he would have to pay a considerable price. However, it was not difficult to kill the 10,000 demon whale shark in this sea level. However, it already had a master. "You really did it." Possessi looked at the black-clothed man in front of him with surprise in his eyes. In the past few decades, these few months were the most surprising days for him. One surprise after another happened in front of him. It was unbelievable. In 5 months, he tied 3 sea gods' locks and sank 5,500 meters in this ring-shaped sea area. If this was the case, Possessi could barely understand. However, in 5 months, he was able to tame 3 aquatic spirit beasts. Possessi. Logically speaking, Baisaishi felt as if he was dreaming when these 3 aquatic soul beasts first appeared. Because these 3 sea spirit beasts had always been in this ring-shaped sea ever since she became the chief consecrator. She herself had tried to tame these 3 ferocious deep-sea beasts several times, but she had failed in the past few years. A distance of more than 5,000 meters was somewhat stressful for her. Furthermore, these 3 aquatic spirit beasts were always together, and it was impossible to tame them all at once. Furthermore, they were sly and cunning, so these three-souled beasts wouldn't come up. No matter how she tried to seduce him, there was nothing she could do, because at the very least, Possessi was able to tame it. But the other party just stayed at the bottom of the sea. This was Possessi's first time seeing these three aquatic soul beasts. Out to the sea. How could he not be surprised? What surprised Possessi the most was that Wang Wu. What method did he use to tame them at the bottom of the sea? Possessi was sure that Wang Wu must be extremely tired and weak when he reached the bottom of the sea. With the craftiness of these three aquatic soul beasts, it was obvious that they would choose to attack at that time. Therefore, Possessi inferred that Wang Wu should be extremely dangerous. The best result would be for him to escape in a sorry state. Instead, he should be standing on the back of the 10,000 demon whale shark and appearing quite carefree like this, strange and puzzling. Is this something difficult? Wang Feng said calmly. After spending so much effort, he still had to pretend. Possessi smiled and looked at Wang Feng. You don't look old, but you can really do this. I have to say that you have done a great favor for the Sea God's Island. You're welcome, Wang Feng said. Who's being polite to you? Possessi couldn't help but laugh. Also, I'm more than 40 years old. I may not be old in front of you. Wang Feng continued. However, Possessi shook his head and said, No, you're not 40 years old. Your bone age is at most 20 years old. You can't hide your aura from me. Wang Feng smiled and didn't say anything. Possessi was probably the most powerful soul master in the entire continent from the perspective of a human soul master. On the Sea God's Island, it was impossible to hide from him. However, I'm curious. You don't seem to be lying. Possessi was a little confused. On the Sea God's Island, she was not only invincible, but also all-knowing. She could tell if Wang Feng was lying. Of course, Wang Feng wasn't lying. Although his bone age was only in his 20s, his two lies made him more than 40 years old. However, Possessi couldn't possibly know this. I've already bestowed your 3 disciples with God-bestowed soul rings. Although I don't know what method you used to help them sink to the bottom of the sea so quickly. However, the method you used is very powerful. Possessi couldn't help but praise. The potential of the 3 of them has been greatly stimulated. They'll reach their goal in half a month at most. When Possessi went down to bestow the soul rings to Hulaina and the others, he naturally felt the changes in them. He could confirm that the 3 of them hadn't cheated in any way. The most obvious point was that their soul power had increased very quickly, and their bodies were becoming stronger. If they had cheated, there wouldn't have been such an obvious improvement. It could only be said that Wang Wu had used some kind of divine tool to create a special method for the 3 of them to achieve such an effect. It's normal. Wang Feng nodded. Seeing this, Baisaishi had a better understanding of Wang Wu's character. He was arrogant, strong, and responsible. The quality was quite good. Your soul power has reached rank 70. This soul ring was given to you by the sea god. A soul ring appeared in Possessi's hand. I think your disciples should have told you. Wang Feng nodded slightly. I'm very curious. Your soul power rank is very strange. Possessi's eyes flashed. Even I can't be completely sure if this soul power rank is rank 70. Hulaina's people couldn't sense his soul power rank. However, as the great consecrator of the Sea God's Island, Possessi could sense it clearly. However, after understanding it, Possessi was even more puzzled. How did a soul master with a soul power rank of less than rank 70 achieve a soul power rank lower than his 3 disciples? Furthermore, how could the sea god give such a terrifying test to a soul master with a soul power rank of 70? Even the 7 saint pillars couldn't complete any of the first test. They really couldn't complete it. Even the 7 saint pillars couldn't complete it with just 3 sea gods' locks and 5,500 meters down. Only she could complete it. Hence, Possessi was very curious about this. Furthermore, Possessi was even more curious. What was the limit of the soul rings he could bear? End of chapter. Chapter 744. However, Wang Feng did not answer. Instead, he said, "Let me try to absorb the soul rings first. Let's talk about the remaining part of the first test." Possessy did not object. Whether he absorbed the soul rings or not, they were here anyway. "Oh yes, you have completely tamed these 3 aquatic soul beasts." Possessy seemed to have thought of something. "I will remove the sea god's lock for them later. You can bring them back to the sea, but I suggest you put them under the sea god's mountain." If a beast of this level were to enter the sea again, who knew how many sea creatures would suffer a calamity? Even if they were tamed temporarily, their wild nature was hard to change. As long as they were not restrained, they would return to their original nature sooner or later. They needed to be tamed for a long period of time. However, it was obvious that Hui Yu Hao could not bring them with him. The largest of these 3 aquatic soul beasts was 80 meters in size. No soul tool could contain such a creature. Hence, Possessy suggested to put them under the sea god's mountain. Hui Yu Hao could slowly tame them and cultivate them. After all, these strong and ferocious aquatic soul beasts would be a great help if they were tamed. "There is no need. I have already broken the sea god's lock." Wang Feng shook his head. "This is also part of my test." Possessy froze on the spot. "You broke it?" Possessy closed her eyes and sensed the 3 aquatic soul beasts carefully. She was shocked. It was really gone. The sea god's lock on these 3 aquatic soul beasts was not simple. To be precise, all the sea god's locks were strengthened by the sea god's power. It was impossible to break them. If it was so easy, these aquatic soul beasts would have escaped long ago. As for the test, Possessy thought that it was impossible to complete it, but now that she thought about it, Hui Yu Hao was able to miraculously tame these 3 aquatic soul beasts. It did not seem impossible. "How did he do it?" Possessy murmured. Only she could unlock the sea god's lock on these aquatic soul beasts, but now it was really broken. Possessy could not say anything because this was part of Hui Yu Hao's test. "Forget it. Go through the light of the sea god first. I will keep the soul rings for you. Since the sea god's lock is broken, what do you plan to do with my 3 aquatic soul beasts?" Possessy looked at Wang Feng. At this moment, the 3 sea spirit beasts roared. Wang Feng said, "Take him away." The reason for taking him away was simple. Wang Feng discovered that this sea crocodile seemed to be a female and belonged to a rather rare species. She happened to be Odontosuchus's type. He thought about how Odontosuchus was the first soul beast that he had subdued. He was also the one who had given him advice to subdue the other 3 soul beasts. She should at least find him a partner, right? This was the wife that she had promised to find for him. Also, this whale shark's body size was very compatible with the cowardly Kuan. As for the bloodhorn dragon, it was just like a simpleton. Thus, due to all sorts of reasons, Wang Feng naturally had to bring his 3 subordinates away. Odontosuchus should be happy to bring it to the extreme north. In any case, there was also the ice sea in that place. Although the cultivation environment wasn't bad for them, the ice sea wasn't too bad. He could even let them out to fight when he was free, especially the bloodhorn dragon. If the bloodhorn dragon grew to 100,000 years old, not only would it grow horns on its head, but it would also have the ability to fly. All right, but it's not easy to take these 3 soul beasts away. Possessy smiled. Wang Feng remained silent. With the strength of the white cloud-bound flag and his current spiritual power, he would be able to contain even 3 more white cloud beasts, let alone 3. "The 3 of you, stay in this sea region and behave yourselves. I'll take you away when the time comes." Wang Feng used his mind, and the dark mystic sword appeared beneath his feet. He casually instructed them. After the white cloud boundary flag had absorbed the blood of the 3 soul beasts, Wang Feng could even communicate with the 3 soul beasts using his spiritual power from a long distance away. The 3 soul beasts roared meekly before they sank into the sea. Seeing this, Possessy brought Wang Feng to the bottom of the stairs of the sea god's light. At the same time, not far from the stairs, Tang San and the others were silently looking at Wang Feng. Whether it was Ma Hongjuan's nagging or Ning Rongrong's speculation, they had all been dispelled. Cheating? Seems like he's about to start the last test of the first test. Qinxiang frowned slightly and said, This Poptive King Fifth is really a mysterious person. Third brother, it's hard to imagine that you were opponents with this kind of person before. Tang San smiled bitterly. Yes. When the news of Poptive King Fifth's death came, Tang San felt very relaxed. One could imagine how much pressure it was to be an opponent with this kind of person. This Poptive King Fifth had a very special aura. It was the kind of feeling that he could do anything. This was very similar to Brother Feng. Tang San felt that Brother Feng should be the most suitable opponent for this Poptive King Fifth. Ning Rongrong watched as Possessi brought Wang Feng to the edge of the jade white stairs. She was like a deflated balloon. How many steps do you think he can reach? At this time, Oscar suddenly said, with Senior Possessi here, he probably won't attack us halfway. But with his strength, how many steps can he reach? Also, Senior Possessi seemed to have given him a God-bestowed soul ring. This means that he should have reached a certain level of soul power? Is he at rank 90? Oscar's words immediately brought everyone back to their senses from their earlier shock, and they all began to ponder. Possessi's appearance was definitely not just because of the three soul beasts. Everyone was silent for a moment. They couldn't come to a conclusion. A conservative estimate is at least 400 steps. Shen Lingqi was the first to speak after pondering for a moment. Back then, he was able to defeat Senior Sword Douluo. This means that he's definitely a titled Douluo. Every step depends on one's strength. Soul power rank is only one of the factors. Shen Lingqi's words seem to have opened everyone's mouth. Then I'll estimate 444 steps. Ma Hongjun chuckled. I estimate 460 steps. Dai Mubai looked at the endless steps and shook his head. I estimate 480 steps. Bai Qinxiang thought for a moment. I estimate 477 steps. Oscar thought for a moment. I estimate 500 steps. Ning Rongrong snorted coldly. Seeing this, everyone looked at Ning Rongrong in surprise. Rongrong, don't you have a grudge against this Poptive King Fifth? Why do you estimate so high? Ma Hongjun was astonished. 500? Ning Rongrong giggled. 500. That's 250. Everyone, I estimate 510 steps. Tang San frowned and said. Everyone was stunned again. However, Tang San had his reasons for estimating so high. Then, I estimate 520 steps. Zhu Zhuqing thought for a long time before saying slowly. At this moment, everyone looked at the foot of the mountain. Poptive King Fifth had already lifted his foot and ascended to the first step. P.S. Sorry, it's a little late today, but I still ask for tickets. End of chapter. Chapter 745. The 1001st step was shrouded in a faint light. The top of the stairs couldn't be seen. This was because it circled around the Sea God Mountain. Wang Feng looked up and could see Tang San and the others standing above like a few small black dots. When Wang Feng stepped on the first step, he roughly understood what this Sea God's light was. Similar to the sea, there was pressure coming from all directions, but it was much stronger. This pressure caused great resistance to those who stepped on the stairs, and their soul power was also consumed at an accelerated rate. After only a few steps, Wang Feng roughly knew that the pressure of this Sea God's light increased by about 10% with each step. In the form of a series of numbers, it gradually increased. In general, the difficulty was not much different from sinking into the deep sea, but it was much more dangerous. Let's see my limit first. Wang Feng didn't walk up the stairs quickly. He walked at an average speed and was even a little slow. He was even slower than Tang San and the others when they first climbed. He was also thinking in his heart, look at my limit, then absorb the God-given soul ring and find a way to help Tang San and the others quickly improve their strength and pass through the Sea God's light without exposing my identity. This was more difficult. Wang Feng looked. Tang San and the others hadn't even reached half of the steps in the past 5 months. Even if they could complete it in a year, it would take too long. He had to lock them down and let them pass the Sea God's light test within 3 months or even 2 months. Hulaina and the others could shorten the time by half with his help. Tang San and the others with greater potential should not be a problem. After thinking for a while, Wang Feng had a rough idea. But the first thing to do now was to look at the sea god's light and estimate his limit. Possessy watched quietly. She also wanted to see how far this Wang Wu could go. The other party's test was the strangest she had ever seen, but he could still complete the first 2 parts, which proved that his current strength was enough to improve. But it was actually very difficult to climb to the 1001st step under the pressure of the sea god's light. The most difficult was the last step. Tang San and the others were also watching. Wang Wu's speed was not fast. On the contrary, it was rising at a constant speed and even a little slow. Why is he so slow? Bai Qinxiang was a little puzzled. With his strength, he should be able to rise to our position soon, right? For example, if Tang San and the others were to ascend from the first level again, they would be able to reach the limit position very quickly. This was because the faster they reached the limit position, the more soul power they would be able to conserve to ascend to higher levels. Is it because he came up from below and didn't have any soul power to pass through the light of the sea god? Is that why he became like this? As soon as Shun Lingqi finished speaking, she shook her head. That's not right. His aura is distant and long. It doesn't seem like he has no soul power. Everyone was puzzled. I think he's too weak. Ning Rongrong snorted. Could it be that the sea god's light exerts different pressure on people of different strengths? But if it's not the same, then our progress is about the same. At this moment, Tang San seemed to have thought of something. I think he's using this special method to train himself. He was able to see his limit in advance. The slower he moves, the more obvious it is. Hearing this, everyone was even more puzzled. They looked at Tang San in astonishment. The slower he moves, the more obvious the pressure he has to bear. The more soul power he consumes, the faster he can reach his body's limit. Tang San continued. On the steps, the faster we ascend, the less obvious the pressure is. It's like we're sitting on a certain level to cultivate. Everyone seemed to understand something. Dai Mubai gave a try. His limit was around the 80th level, but he cultivated at the 50th level. This way, his soul power consumption could reach an average level and increase his cultivation speed. If he cultivated at the 80th level, it would be impossible to withstand that kind of pressure for a long time, let alone cultivate. From the 50th level, Dai Mubai imitated Wang Wu. He slowly lifted his feet and stepped on the 51st level. It was as if he was moving in slow motion. It took him about 30 seconds to step on the 51st level, but his whole body was sweating profusely. This consumption is a bit exaggerated. Dai Mubai couldn't help but be a little shocked. 1/10 of my soul power has been consumed. According to my original speed, I can cross the 51st level in a second, and not even 1% of my soul power has been consumed. Tang San's eyes flashed. The reason was very simple. It was like doing a push-up in a second was not tiring and did not consume much energy. But if you did a push-up in a minute, you would collapse from exhaustion after finishing. Wang Feng had been reaching his limit in the deep sea at a constant speed. Other than allowing himself to adapt, it was also to determine his own limit and quickly consume his soul power. Otherwise, Wang Feng could have reached the 4,500-meter position in a shorter time. But if he reached it so quickly, Wang Feng's body would not have improved so much. We can try this method. Choose 10 levels to climb once. Tang San thought for a while and said, let's reach our limit quickly and then cultivate to improve our physical strength. This time, we don't need to climb very fast. On the contrary, the slower the better. Everyone nodded. At this time, Wang Wu had already reached the 30th level. His speed was still not fast. He was just carefully feeling the intensity of the light of the sea god and the consumption of his soul power. There should be more changes above the 100th level. It increases by 10% on each level. There should be a qualitative change between the 100th and the 1,000th level. Wang Fengxin pondered. Soon, Wang Feng was close to Tang San and the others. The steps were very wide, enough to accommodate more than 10 people. At this time, Tang San and the others also stopped and looked at Wang Wu. There was a special emotion in their hearts. Among them, Ning Rongrong was the most emotional. She glared at Wang Feng fiercely. On the 50th level, Wang Feng stopped and looked at Ning Rongrong. "What are you looking at?" Ning Rongrong snorted. "Climb for me." Wang Feng, Rongrong, this girl, actually remembered what he said to her when they first met. Wang Feng shook his head and said, "Is this your limit in 5 months?" Wang Feng stepped on the steps under his feet and said calmly, "This progress is too slow. I think it's impossible for you to complete the first test. You're too weak. Leave the group, leave the mountain." Ning Rongrong raised her eyebrows. She was angry and was about to say something. However, Wang Feng ignored him and walked up to him. "This bastard." Ning Rongrong snorted and shouted angrily, "Are you looking down on us? Just you wait." "Okay, I'll wait for you on the 1001st level." Wang Feng did not look back. Ning Rongrong's face turned red. Popetiff Wang Wu is so arrogant. He deserves his reputation. Ma Hongjun narrowed his eyes. Looks like it's time to show the true strength of the evil phoenix. F***CK. End of chapter. Chapter 746. His arrogant words and calm tone immediately made everyone angry as if they had been injected with chicken blood. However, Wang Feng did not care. Soon, he reached the 100th floor and entered the 100th floor. The pressure suddenly increased a lot. A qualitative change. A real qualitative change. Wang Feng's figure paused slightly, but there was still no change. His speed was still climbing at a constant speed, neither fast nor slow. The light of the sea god was still wrapped around the sea god mountain, sprinkling on the 1,000th-floor stairs. Wang Feng walked while admiring the surrounding scenery, and his height was slowly rising. Wang Feng had gone around the circular stairs several times, and, unknowingly, he had reached the 200th floor. Although Wang Feng's speed was very slow, in the eyes of Tang San and the others, it was already so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. Because they had spent 5 months, and only Tang San and Zhu Zhuqing had broken through the 100th floor. But now, Wang Feng had reached the 200th floor in less than an hour. The most terrifying thing was, his speed was still rising at a constant speed. This meant that he was far from reaching his limit. After the second hour, Wang Feng reached the 100th floor again. At this time, Tang San and the others, who followed Wang Feng's method of climbing at a constant speed, began to cultivate on the fixed stairs. In the third hour, Wang Feng reached the 400th floor. Tang San and the others also recovered a little. They looked up at the gradually shrinking figure and didn't know what to say for a moment. His speed hasn't changed yet. Oscar bared his teeth. Is he a monster? How strong is his body? Look at the height, at least the 400th floor. Silence. It seems that we have underestimated him, Bai Qinxiang whispered. It was more than underestimating. When they saw that Popetiff Wang Wu had reached the 500th floor and his speed hadn't slowed down, everyone felt their scalps tingle. That enormous gap made everyone feel as if they were facing a towering mountain. After entering the 500th floor, Wang Feng finally felt some pressure. But it was not enough. It only put some pressure on Wang Feng's physical fitness. His speed still didn't change and continued to rise. When he reached the 600th floor, the pressure he felt was very clear. Wang Feng's speed had some subtle changes. It was already afternoon. Wang Feng increased his speed slightly, because if he continued at the same speed, he would use up too much of his soul force. He might run out of soul force before he reached his limit. He's accelerating. Tang San and the others were also looking up at the tiny figure in the air at an angle of 75 degrees. It was only at the 600th floor that the crowd saw the other party accelerate. After accelerating, Wang Feng passed through each level faster than before. It was as if he was flying. In just a moment, he had reached the 700th level. The terrifying pressure of the 700th floor of the Sea God's Light was beyond everyone's imagination. The strongest among them, Tang San, would be sent flying after stepping onto the 111th floor. It was hard to bear that terrifying pressure. Have you guys encountered a problem? He doesn't seem to have enhanced himself or revealed his martial soul. How many soul bones does he have? At this moment, Tang, San spoke slowly. Everyone was shocked. However, at this moment, they could no longer see the other party's figure clearly. When Wang Feng stepped onto the 800th floor, his body seemed to be crackling. Wang Feng had to activate the power of the blood mark and his soul bones to continue moving forward. Although this level is much less than the depth of the sea, the enhancement of each level is too much. Wang Feng shook his head secretly. 10% did not seem much, but it was very exaggerated. The pressure of each level had to be increased by 10%. The 10% here was an increase of 10% on the basis of the previous level. However, at the 800th floor, Wang Feng was already more than 400 meters high. Tang San and the others below were very small. The sea god's light also blocked their vision and perception. Even Tang San could only see a blurry shadow. He could not even accurately estimate his own level. Possessi was still watching quietly. She did not know what the other party's limit was. How many levels could he reach in one breath? Halfway up the mountain, Wang Feng's eyes were solemn. His footsteps were a little heavy. His speed had completely decreased. To be precise, he had stopped. The 857th floor. Relying on the power of the blood mark and the 4 soul bones to reduce the pressure, he was already close to his limit. If he enhanced himself further, reaching the 900th floor would not be a problem. Passing through the sea god's light did not consume much of Wang Feng's spiritual power. This was because this environment was much more comfortable than the deep sea. When he was tired, he could still look at the scenery around him, or he could retreat dozens of levels and cultivate as he cultivated. There was no pressure on his spiritual power. However, it consumed a lot of soul power. The burden on his body was not inferior to that of the deep sea. Fortunately, Wang Feng had already passed the test of sinking into the deep sea. Right now, his body was very strong. Rank 70 soul power was enough to make Wang Feng's soul power comparable to a titled Douluo. Wang Feng did not enhance himself in the end. He forced his way to the 900th floor. The 900th floor was like another world. The pressure of the sea god's light made Wang Feng feel like he was in another world. His entire body felt like it was being squeezed by a pressure machine. There are still 101 levels left. Wang Feng estimated the soul power in his body and the strength that his body could withstand. Then, he calculated the intensity of the enhancement. Wang Feng estimated that it should be around the 990th floor. As for the remaining 11 floors, it would probably take him a month to reach them. Possessi, let's stop here for now. Wang Feng shook his head. He had already reached his limit by using the power of his blood patterns. It's time to put some pressure on little 3 and the rest. He looked at the sky. It was filled with stars. The night sky above the sea was very beautiful. It was as if the sky was lit up. It did not make one feel dark at all. The flickering and pulsating stars and the disc-like moon were all emitting a clear and cold light. Compared to the increasingly dark and empty deep sea, this place made one feel very comfortable. Your limit should be more than this. Bai Saishi looked at Wang Feng, who was on the stairs. Her eyes sparkled. The only difference between sinking 5,500 meters and passing through the 1,001st floor of the sea god's light was the last few floors. This was especially so for the last floor. Wang Wu could withstand 5,000 meters of the deep sea and carry 3 sea god's locks. His current limit was at least the 950th floor. He would not stop at the 900th floor. You can tell me when you need to absorb a god-bestowed soul ring. Possessi did not ask Wang Feng why he stopped at the 900th floor. After instructing him, he disappeared in mid-air. Wang Feng was silent for a moment. He looked at the remaining 100 floors. After that, he started to walk down. In a chapter. Chapter 747. This doesn't feel right. This light of the sea god is too easy. According to my progress, I will reach the top in less than a month. Although the later stages are more difficult, there seems to be a big difference between this and my previous 2 tests. Wang Feng felt that it was a little strange. Compared to the light of the sea god, Wang Feng felt that sinking into the deep sea and subduing 3 sea spirit beasts were more difficult. The 2 tests were linked together, and the actual difficulty was much higher. The 1001st step should be a little strange. Could it be on the last checkpoint? Wang Feng thought as he walked down. Why was there an extra step in the 1001st step? Wasn't it good to have 1,000 steps? Why did there have to be an extra step to kill someone with OCD? Wang Feng sat down and started to meditate after reaching the 800th step. Even though he had reached rank 70 and couldn't level up, he could still cultivate and store the soul power he had accumulated. Furthermore, he still had the meteoric tear. Once he absorbed the God-bestowed soul ring, he should be able to level up even more. Wang Feng did not absorb the God-bestowed soul ring now because he wanted to increase his strength quickly and increase his tolerance. Wang Feng estimated that he should be able to withstand a soul ring with a cultivation of 4 to 500,000 years. His limit could be even higher. It would be too difficult if it was a million-year soul ring. After all, it was only his 7th soul ring. Wang Feng felt that only his 8th soul ring could be a million-year soul ring. But thinking about it, there were no million-year soul beasts in the Douluo world. Soul beasts of that level were half a step into the realm of gods. There were not many of them. He closed his eyes, and the spiritual power in his sea of consciousness flowed like a river. In an instant, it was as if the stars in the sky were shining brighter. Endless moonlight poured down and landed on Wang Feng's body, making him look like an ancient god. The energy between heaven and earth started to move. Under the night sky, the calm sea seemed to be affected by the movement of the energy between heaven and earth, and waves started to appear. In the light of the sea god, there was no wind at all, but there was also a breeze caused by energy. Then endless energy from heaven and earth flowed towards the sea god mountain crazily. The gentle breeze gradually turned into a cool breeze. In the end, it turned into a gale, a hurricane, and finally, a terrifying energy tornado was formed. It enveloped more than half of the sea god mountain. Wang Feng, who was in the center, was emitting a bright luster. He was as motionless as a mountain, absorbing the endless energy through meditation. Meanwhile, the 50th floor, after a day of training, Tang San and the others were all exhausted and meditating. The 9 of them opened their eyes at the same time as the breeze blew. Where's the wind coming from? Why does it feel like the energy in this place has increased? Dai Mubai looked at them doubtfully. What do you think? Everyone nodded in agreement. He had been cultivating on this platform for 5 months, so he was naturally very familiar with it. Cultivating under the pressure of the light of the sea god could increase his cultivation speed. However, the energy around the sea god mountain had never changed. Although it was very dense, it wasn't like this where a special breeze was blowing. Not only could the light of the sea god defend against reflected attacks, but it could also isolate many of them. Just as everyone was puzzled, the wind changed. In less than 100 seconds, the breeze turned into a violent gale. The surging energy was frantically squeezing the light of the sea god from the outside. What's going on? Oscar waved his hand. They could feel the enormous energy fluctuation. The higher they went, the denser the energy became. Could this be a reward from Senior Possessee? Ma Hongjun looked at the sky. That doesn't make sense. Shun Lingqi pondered for a moment and said, It feels like the sea god's island is absorbing the energy of heaven and earth. The energy here has suddenly become denser. It seems to have changed again. The few of them chatted for a while. At this moment, the gale turned into a real hurricane. It was as if an energy feast had started on the sea god mountain. In an instant, the 9 people's expressions changed dramatically. Even though they hadn't started to meditate, the terrifying flow of energy was rushing straight in from the outside, surging upwards. The energy density suddenly increased by several levels. Quick, let's start cultivating. Tang San's expression changed slightly as he suddenly opened his mouth and said. The other 8 people did not hesitate. They sat down and began meditating. The sudden change in the energy density made everyone feel somewhat incredulous. However, they did not have the time to think too much about it. They could only make the best use of their time and quickly absorb the sudden energy torrent. The 800th step, Wang Feng did not just rely on himself to absorb energy. At the same time, he was also using his mind power to attract a huge amount of energy to gather here. That was why he could create such a terrifying momentum. The purpose was very simple. In addition to cultivating for himself, he also wanted to let Tang San and the others enjoy this kind of benefit a little. 5 months ago, when he was cultivating with Hulayina and the others, Wang Feng's mind power was not so strong. At that time, it was only a stream. Now it was like a surging river. Once he started meditating, the momentum would be even greater. Moreover, Wang Feng consciously used his mind power to control the density of the energy around him. Otherwise, Tang San and the others would be so far away from him. The effect would not be very good. It was not like Hulayina, who was not far away from him back then. The advantage of increasing one's mind power was that meditation cultivation would also improve very quickly. This was also one of the reasons why Tang San's cultivation speed was far faster than the others in the later stage. Time passed by unknowingly. The moon quietly hid. It was dawn. Wang Feng opened his eyes, and he was quite happy. There were still benefits to cultivating in this place, much better than in the deep sea, because when he cultivated in the deep sea, Wang Feng still needed to use the blue flag to absorb the energy in the sea. But here he did not need it. Although his soul power rank did not increase, his soul power was stored. When he obtained a soul ring, his soul power rank should increase a lot. I don't know how much Tang San and the others have improved. It should not be enough to just increase the density. Wang Feng lightly jumped down from the stairs and arrived at the first floor. He started walking again. This time, he intended to put some pressure on Tang San and the others. Otherwise, they could only pass the test in 1 year, which was too slow. And at this time, the 50th step, Tang San and the others opened their eyes at the same time. Tang San, Dai Mubai, Xiao Wu, and Zhu Zhuqing were cultivating on the 50th step. The others, Oscar, Ning Rongrong, and Shun Lingqi, were on the 40th, 42nd, and 35th steps respectively. Bai Chunxiang was cultivating on the 20th step. They were not far away, only more than 10 meters apart. After opening their eyes, they were all silent. End of this chapter. Chapter 748. After that, Ning Rongrong used her skull's soul skill, illusory space, to connect the 9 of them together so that they could communicate. 1 night of cultivation is equivalent to several days of our cultivation. Oscar was the first to speak. Did Senior Possessee really do this? The energy concentration on the sea god's mountain suddenly changed, and it only lasted for 1 night. Why didn't Senior do this before? Ma Hongjun shook his head. But the effect is amazing. 1 night of cultivation is equivalent to 2 days of our cultivation. It's ridiculous. I feel like I can climb 1 more step. As long as it's beneficial to us. Ning Rongrong laughed. Instead of thinking so much, why don't we climb a few more steps? Let's hope something like this happens again tonight. Could it have something to do with Wang Wu? Shun Lingqi asked. After he reached the 700th level yesterday, we couldn't see him anymore. We don't know where he is either. However, all of you should be able to sense that the energy is flowing upwards. It's not just increasing the energy concentration on the entire sea god's island. Could something be absorbing this energy to increase the speed of cultivation? And we're affected? It had to be said that Shun Lingqi's words stunned several people. Last night, the direction of the energy was indeed upward. This meant that something was attracting the energy from above, but there was only Wang Wu above the sea god's palace. There was no such coincidence in the world. Wang Wu had just entered the sea god's light when something like this happened. They had never encountered such a situation before. Therefore, it could only be caused by Wang Wu. Everyone fell silent when they thought of this. Could it be that he's cultivating? Unknowingly, everyone felt their mouths dry up. If that was the case, Wang Wu could trigger such a terrifying energy just by meditating. They had only touched it a little, and they had improved so much. One had to know that the position of the 9 of them was a full 800 levels away from Wang Wu's position. In fact, Wang Feng was using his spiritual power to control the energy concentration. Of course, they couldn't sense it. This is too frightening. Ma Hongjun shook his head frantically. A person can change the flow of energy in this direction just by meditating. Even senior possessee doesn't have such a powerful ability, right? This possibility was already somewhat beyond their imagination. That was because they didn't know how monstrous Wang Feng's body was. Even more so, they didn't know that Wang Feng's mental strength had already materialized and was like a surging river. In that case, we're basking in his glory. Ning Rongrong pouted and said, "Would he be so kind?" Of course he wouldn't be so kind-hearted, but this is definitely not something he can control. Shun Lingqi said, "Such a huge flow of energy is not something that can be controlled by a human. However, it is hard to imagine how he did it with his cultivation speed and the momentum he created." Tang San frowned slightly as he watched the crowd talking. Was it really impossible to control it? Indeed, if he could really control it, why would the other party be so kind? Only Zhu Zhuqing remained silent, listening to their discussion. "Brother, actually I think it's not that simple," Xiao Wu muttered in a low voice. Although Xiao Wu hadn't fully resurrected, the consciousness hidden in her soul ring could temporarily return to her body. Although she couldn't stay for long, she could still climb the stairs with him sometimes. "What's wrong?" Tang San looked at Xiao Wu. "Xiao Wu, what do you think is the problem?" Xiao Wu opened her mouth and was about to say something when suddenly, "Oomph! That bastard is here again." Ning Rongrong snorted and pointed down the mountain. The rest of the people continued to read on. Sure enough, Wang Feng was slowly walking up from the foot of the mountain. However, this time, Wang Feng was climbing the stairs a little different. A pitch-black light was emitted from Wang Feng's body. Although it was blocked by the light of the sea god, it still covered an area of 100 meters. A terrifying aura was released from Wang Feng's body. Tang San and the others felt that aura almost as soon as Wang Feng stepped onto the 20th step. There was also the power of a domain. Seeing this, Tang San and the others were shocked. They didn't know what Wang Feng wanted to do. Was he going to attack them? Wasn't that courting death? This was the Sea God Mountain. If they dared to act recklessly, they would be suppressed by the possessee in an instant. They couldn't even leave the island. But soon, they didn't have time to think. Because with the original sin's domain and the soul power pressure, everyone's expression changed drastically. It was a double pressure that was stronger than the light of the sea god on the stairs they were on. It was far beyond their limits. Especially as Wang Feng approached, the impact of the original sin's domain and the soul power pressure became more and more intense. Under the double pressure, the 9 of them didn't have time to think. They could only crazily circulate the soul power that they had just recovered from last night to quickly resist the impact. The current original sin's domain was the complete version, but Wang Feng controlled it and only used a part of its strength. However, the soul power pressure was real. His soul power rank wasn't high, but it was enhanced by 300,000-year soul rings. After being compressed and purified, even if his soul rings weren't revealed, his soul power was much stronger than the 7 of them. It was comparable to a titled Douluo's soul power. How could that be a joke? Just like that, Wang Feng walked slowly towards the 5 of them, one step at a time. He walked very slowly and at a constant speed. However, with every step he took, the 9 of them felt like their bodies were about to explode. However, they were at the null boundary point and couldn't explode. It was a huge burden on their bodies and minds. The first to collapse was naturally by Qinxiang. In just a few minutes, Wang Feng was getting closer and closer to them. The 9 of them started to collapse one after another. Their minds and bodies couldn't take it anymore. Bai Qinxiang, Shun Lingqi, Oscar, Ning Rongrong, Ma Hongjun, Dai Mubai, Xiao Wu, Zhu Zhuqing, Tang San. When Wang Feng reached the 50th step, the 9 of them, except for Tang San, Dai Mubai, Xiao Wu, and Zhu Zhuqing collapsed one after another. The pressure of the light of the sea god far exceeded this level. It was simply unreasonable. However, the other party controlled it very cleverly. It was as if he wanted to use this method to destroy their minds and bodies. He didn't want to kill them directly. Tang San's face was red as he looked at the back of the figure. He groaned, and the 8-spider spear had already extended from his back. The pressure only disappeared when the other party reached the 100th step. It was also at this moment that Tang San collapsed. He felt the world spinning, and his mind was dizzy. It was as if he couldn't feel the light of the sea god on the 50th step at all. End of chapter. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.